Chapter 185. Hua Yuxian? Yin was stunned. Everyone on the boat was stunned when they heard this name. The singer holding the pipa was also shocked. She looked at Lin Shuanghe and stared at him for a long time. Then, she called out uncertainly, "Young Master Lin?" It really was Hua Yuxian. Yin quickly walked forward. He rubbed his eyes subconsciously, afraid that this was all just a dream. Who would have thought that Lin Shuanghe would really meet Hua Yuxian just as he mentioned her? But why was Hua Yuxian in Jinling? Yin was not the only one surprised. Lin Shuanghe said, "Aren't you married? You followed that scholar surnamed Wang to Yangzhou. Why are you in Jinling? Am I dreaming?" He turned to look at everyone. Their reactions told him that it was indeed true. Hua Yuxian looked at everyone on the boat. She was also excited. She calmed herself down and said, "I have divorced my husband. Yangzhou is not my hometown after all, so I decided to come back to Jinling. I have only been in Jinling for half a month. I did not expect to meet all the young masters here." Her eyes curved. She was as charming as before. "It has been many years since we last met. How are the young masters?" Lin Shuanghe moved his lips. After a while, he said, "I am fine. But Miss Yuxian, you are now—" "I have returned to Riyunlu." Hua Yuxian was very calm. "I have always grown up in Riyunlu. In Jinling, Riyunlu is also my home." She looked at everyone. "If the young masters have nothing to do, why don't you go to Riyunlu later? Riyunlu is not as good as it used to be, but it is not bad." Lin Shuanghe turned and asked everyone, "Let's go to Riyunlu? It has been so many years. I want to see it again." This time, even Yin He, who was always picky, did not say anything. Everyone agreed at the same time. Hua Yuxian saw this and smiled. She ordered the boatman to lead the two boats to the shore. Yin stared at the blurred lights on the shore. He could not calm down. Half of the beauties in Jinling City were from entering Cloud's restaurant. Every girl in the brothel had a flower name when they reached a certain age. Only Hua Yuxian didn't have a common name like Peony or Peony. She had chosen her name herself. Taking this from a travelogue, it was said that in the country of Chiotzi, there was a pillow the color of agate. The pillow was the 10 continents, the 3 islands, the 4 seas, and the 5 lakes were all in a dream. It was named the traveling immortal pillow. When Hua Yuxian was young, she especially loved reading travel books. She hoped that she could marry a lover in the future. She longed for her future husband to take her everywhere. He named himself Traveling Immortal. The mother of Entering Cloud's Tower also felt that this name was very good, so she called it Flower Fairy, Flower Fairy. When Hua Yuxian was 14 years old, she was already famous in Wei because of her beauty. She was also very talented and knew everything about music, chess, calligraphy, and painting. Many princes and young masters were willing to throw away a lot of money in exchange for a smile from beauty. Naturally, she was fully deserving of the title of top courtesan in Entering Cloud's Tower. For the youths of Xianchang Dojo, Hua Yuxian was like a fairy from the 9th heaven. Not to mention that the courtesans of the brothel were inferior. For children like them who had strict upbringing and would be beaten until they couldn't get out of bed when they entered the brothel, Hua Yuxian was simply an unattainable dream. They didn't want to get close to her or anything. As long as they could take a look and see the legendary peerless beauty, they would be satisfied. Therefore, the Jinling Poetry Festival was simply an opportunity that all the youths wished for. Each of them was eager to try, rubbing their hands together. In addition, there was Lin Shuanghe, this person who frequently came up with bad ideas. Very quickly, all the youths decided on their manservants and bodyguards. Yin was a girl, so he didn't have a yearning that the youths had for Hua Yuxian's dream lover. However, he also wanted to see what kind of beauty the world said was rarely seen in 100 years was. However, while he was looking forward to it, he was also a bit nervous. If Yuan Sheng found out about this, he didn't know how long he would be punished to kneel in the ancestral hall. The youths who came out together were all wealthy and respectable. Naturally, they didn't lack money. However, it was their first time entering a brothel, and they didn't have much experience. They dressed themselves up like peacocks, thinking that this would show that they were full of confidence. Except for Yang Mingji, Xiao Ju, and Yin. Xiao Ju was used to wearing a white gown and a silver crown. Her charming face was frosty. Yang Mingji was a modest gentleman, clean and handsome. Tian was afraid of attracting attention. Originally, she wore a mask and was already different from others. If she also wore gold and silver like Yan He, she was afraid that the news would spread to the He family in Shuajing tomorrow. Therefore, she wore the most ordinary clothes and stood beside the group of wealthy youths like a manservant. Even though the manservant was still wearing a mask that covered his face tightly, he still couldn't help it. Old Madame Ding of Entering Cloud's brothel had seen countless people. With one look, she could tell that this group of youths were all inexperienced. She could also tell that their family background was not ordinary. She thought that it was some family's young masters who came out to see the world. Immediately, her smile became even more enthusiastic. She only cared about serving the best food and wine and called for sensible and obedient girls to stand by the side to serve them. The youths were served until they were floating. They felt that they could finally hold their heads high and were no longer children in the eyes of their fathers and brothers. When they were drunk, there were still people who remembered their purpose for coming. They only asked the girl beside them, "Where's Hua Yuxian? Why don't I see Hua Yuxian? We came here to see Hua Yuxian." The girl still wanted to muddle through. She whispered into the youth's ear, "Young master, if you say so, you will hurt Kai Lian's heart. Am I not good enough? Why are you thinking of someone else?" Although she was not considered stunning, she had delicate features. Her pitiful appearance immediately made people feel pity for her. The youth was about to comfort her when Lin Shuanghe opened his folding fan and said flirtatiously, "We have 11 guests here. Everyone is thinking of Miss Kai Lian's words. I am afraid that Miss Kai Lian will not be able to handle it." Yinny also said, "That's right." After saying that, he threw a silver ingot on the table. "We want to see Hua Yuxian." This group of young masters seemed to be of high status. Kai Lian did not dare to offend them. Seeing that she could not fool them, she thought about it and went to get her helper, Old Madame Ding, to come over. Old Madame Ding flung her handkerchief and smiled apologetically. "Young masters, I am really sorry. Recently, Hua Yuxian has not been feeling well. She is recuperating and is not seeing guests. Young masters like Hua Yuxian. Today, Entering Cloud's brothel has not been a good host. Ding Xiang, go and get our drunken red dust here. Today's wine is my gift to the young masters. I hope that the young masters will forgive me." Old Madame Ding had stayed in Entering Cloud's brothel for so many years. She had seen all kinds of monsters. It was more than enough to deal with a group of young boys. After a few words, she expressed her apology and made it difficult for the others to say anything else. After she left, the youths looked at the wine jars on the table and looked at each other. One of them said, "That's it. How can it be like this?" Another person was not in a good mood. "Our luck is too bad. What do you mean by coming back after a few days? Once the poetry gathering is over, we have to go back. Won't we have wasted this trip?" That's right. We just want to see what she looks like. We can just sit there and not move. There is no need to play the zither or dance. Otherwise, when we go back, how can we brag to others? I have already prepared the silver. This is too miserable." He silently picked at the fried peanuts in front of him and ate. This had nothing to do with her. She did not have the right to speak and did not want to speak. Even if she could not see Hua Yuxian, she could look at Rose Jasmine. After all, it was not her money that was spent. But the youths were different. They did not come all the way to Jinling just to participate in a poetry gathering. They were more interested in the legendary Hua Yuxian. Therefore, the few of them discussed and came up with a bad idea. All the girls in Entering Cloud's brothel live in the attic. Let's find out where Hua Yuxian lives and look for her through the window. How about that? The rose cake in Hian's mouth fell with a pada sound. The crumbs splashed on the Xiao Ju beside him. He frowned and brushed it away. The youth seemed to have found a good idea and was very excited. "Yes, let's do it. I won't do anything. When I came here, I bought a hairpin from Shua Jing's Baozhu shop. I just want to give this hairpin to her and see what she looks like. I will knock on the window. If she hates me, I won't go in. If the fairy is kind, I will climb over the window and ask if she can meet us. We came all the way from Shuo Jing to see her. Wouldn't it be a pity if we just leave without fighting for her? Ian thought that it was indeed a case of blind lust. He could even think of this kind of idea. What was the difference between him and those flower thieves who peeped at girls? Were all the men in the world like this? They were so enamored of beauty that they did not even care about their faces. But she did not expect that this bad idea would be approved by most of the youths. The rest of the youths agreed. This idea is good. Why don't we do it? Little Yin restrained herself, but it was probably because she was a woman, so she couldn't help but remind them, if someone finds out, they'll think that we're flower thieves. Moreover, if we enter without an invitation, won't we ruin the reputation of the flower fairy? At that time, the youths were pure and innocent. They did not think that the girls in entering Cloud's brothel did not have a reputation to speak of. After thinking for a while, someone said, "We will knock on the window from outside and pass her a note. If she agrees, we will go in. Before that, we will not enter her room." Yin was speechless. What was the difference? The youths immediately went to find out where Hua Yoxian's room was. Although they were a little stupid when it came to sex, they were not really dumb. After all, they were the youths specially selected by Xianchang Hall to participate in the poetry competition. Each of them was smart and generous. Not long after, they found out where Hua Yuxian lived from the other girls. Hua Yuxian lived on the top floor of the attic. There was a lake behind the house, and there was no one else around. Among the 10 youths, most of them were quite skilled. Generally speaking, the students in Xianchang Hall were not too biased in their studies and martial arts. It was rare to find someone like Yang Mingji, who was good at his studies but terrible at martial arts. The leader of the youths rubbed his palms and was eager to try. He even turned to ask Xiao Ju and Yin He, "Why don't you two go first?" After all, these two were the best in martial arts. Climbing over a wall was as easy as walking on flat ground. Xiao Ju said, "I'm not going." Yin He said in disgust, "I'm not going either. I'm not a pervert." Lin Shuanghe wanted to go, but he was not good at martial arts. His back hurt from walking too much, let alone climbing over a wall. He could not be the first to go. Yang Mingji had always been polite. He had been forced to come to Cloud Tower by the others, so he would not do something so impolite. Yan's words were automatically ignored by the youths. When the youth saw this, he did not say much. He only spat twice on his hands and silently climbed up with the rope. Yan stood on the ground and looked at the disappearing dot in the night sky. He thought to himself, that's a little too much. One person climbed through the window, while the others kept watch. After all, if something happened to one person, the students in the hall would not be able to escape. No one wanted to go back and be punished by the family. That was why they kept a close watch. However, the security at the back of Cloud Tower was very lax. They probably thought that no one would dare to openly kidnap someone at this time. Yan was about to break his neck when there was finally some movement on the other side. The rope shook. Not long after, the youth who went up came down. He was excited and his face was flushed red. His classmates beside him asked, "How was it? Did you see her?" The child nodded furiously. The crowd became even more enthusiastic. "How was it? Is the flower fairy really as amazing as the rumors say?" He nodded furiously again. Then how is she? This person was protective of the fairer sex. He still remembered that the flower fairy had not been feeling well recently. Is she very haggard? Is it serious? Do we need a famous doctor to take a look? The youth puffed up his cheeks and said after a while, The flower fairy is locked in the house and under house arrest. When I passed her the note, she opened the window and let me in. She even asked me if I could save her." Everyone looked at each other, not understanding what he meant. Lin Shuanghe put away his fan and asked doubtfully, "Do you mean that Cloud Tower mistreats her?" The youth nodded, then shook his head and stomped his foot. "I don't know. Forget it. Come with me." Everyone was dumbfounded. Yan's heart skipped a beat. This matter was getting out of hand. It's okay. The flower fairy said that those people only go to her house twice a day. After today, they won't go again. Her door is locked, and there are guards downstairs. We can go up and ask what's going on. If there's really a problem, as men, we can't just leave her in the lurch, can we? Young men around the age of 10 were always looking forward to the day when they could become the hero who saved the beauty. The more beautiful the beauty was, the more powerful the hero would be. If the beauty was a peerless beauty, it would be even better. The hero would definitely become a legend. Tien subconsciously refused. This isn't good, right? How about I stay here and keep a lookout for you? I won't go up. The youths looked at him with burning eyes. What's not good about it? You're weak and easy to bully. If there's any movement, you might run away first. We don't trust you. Brother Mingji, your body is weak. Why don't you keep a lookout? Yang Mingji couldn't ask for anything more and agreed. Xiao Ju and Yin, he didn't want to go, but after being coaxed by the youths, they finally agreed. Yin wanted to vomit blood, but he couldn't do anything about it. He followed the crowd and climbed up the rope to the attic. The windows of the attic were already open. The youths went in one by one. When they entered the room, they suddenly felt a woman's fragrance. There was only a dim oil lamp in the room. Under the oil lamp, there was a peerless beauty sitting on a wrought tan chair. There were actually many beauties in Shuo City, but the woman in front of them was captivating. Her eyes were round, but the corners of her eyes were sharp. She was charming and innocent. Her skin was extremely white, and her lips were shockingly bright. Her long hair wasn't tied up and just casually draped behind her head. It contrasted with her vermilion muslin dress. There was no need to talk about her appearance. Her gentle and charming manner was more charming than words. At first glance, she was like a goddess descending to the mortal world. The usually arrogant and noisy youths all fell silent in front of this woman. Their faces were all red and their eyes were stunned. Tian's face was covered by the mask. He only thought that there was actually such a beautiful woman in the world. I am Hua Yuxian. The woman's smile was like a flower. Her voice was soft and sweet. Greetings to the young masters. Hua Yuxian was a few years older than the oldest child here. Because she had always stayed in Ruyin Lu, she didn't look immature at all. When the children were suddenly spoken to, they stuttered and didn't say anything. One by one, they turned into quails. Even Lin Shuanghe, who was the most skilled in this, didn't know what to say for a moment. It was Xiao Ju who opened her mouth and said calmly, I heard that Miss is under house arrest. Hua Yuxian looked at Xiao Ju. Her gaze couldn't help but pause. There was no other reason. This youth's appearance was too outstanding among his peers, and his gaze was calm from the beginning to the end. He wasn't fooled by her appearance. His gaze was as calm as water. This was rare. Hua Yuxian also felt that it was interesting. But soon, she answered, That's right. Who put you under house arrest? Yin, he was a straightforward person. He immediately asked, Mother from Ruyin Lu? Not really. Hua Yuxian smiled. Although she was a woman from Ruyin Lu, she was neither servile nor overbearing when speaking to these youths. She had a good sense of propriety. She was neither too distant nor too domineering. Mother had no choice. The one who put me under house arrest was the cousin of the governor's wife. This was a slight detour. Lin Shuanghe was indeed someone who had read all kinds of stories. He immediately asked, Did that person want to force you to return home? Hua Yuxian looked at the young master holding a fan in front of her. She was slightly surprised. Then she smiled and said, That's right. For a moment, there were low gasps in the room, followed by angry reprimands. How can this be? This local official is too overbearing. Is no one going to do anything about it? Snatching a civilian girl in broad daylight. This is a violation of the law. Is there any way to get you out of here? The flower-traveling deity looked at these young youths and smiled. Her voice was also very gentle as she comforted them. Actually, it's fine if it's just the traveling deity. Once you enter the cloud pavilion, you have no choice but to do so. I already knew that this day would come, but because I implicated others, Her expression dimmed, and a layer of worry appeared between her brows. The worry of a beauty was pitiful, and he swung his ponytail and said, Miss, if you have something to say, just say it. If you have any difficulties, we may be able to solve them for you. He coughed lightly and praised himself. My family background is much more powerful than that governor. Although he was dressed very extravagantly and his clothes were embroidered with layers of gold and silver thread, one could tell that he was wealthy. Not only him, The group of youths, especially the one in the white robe, did not look like ordinary people. Hua Yuxian had stayed in Ruyunlu since she was young. Although she was not as sharp as Madame Ding, she was better than ordinary people. When Yanhe said this, a ray of hope rose in her heart. Here, she was a weak girl. Naturally, she could not go against the government. Even Ruyunlu and Madame Ding had to obey Ying Tianfu. But if this young master was really more powerful than the governor, as he said, she might have a chance of survival. It did not matter how she was. What was important was that that person was fine. Thinking about this, Hua Yuxian smiled and looked at Yanhe. She asked gently, "May I know young master's name?" Yanhe blushed from Hua Yuxian's smile. He was about to say his name when he suddenly remembered that he came to Ruyunlu behind his family's back. He said, "My surname is Yan. So it's you, young Master Yan." The flower fairy looked at him. "No matter what, I have to thank you, young master." She sighed softly. "Actually, I was the cause of all this." Just as Lin Shuanghe had guessed, Hua Yuxian was famous in Ruyunlu when she was 14. After she turned 16, there was an endless stream of people who wanted to marry her. Madame Ding could not bear to part with such a money tree. Of course, she wanted to keep Hua Yuxian for a while longer. Besides, they had called each other mother and daughter for many years. There was some warmth between them. Madame Ding was also planning to find a good family to marry Hua Yuxian off when the time came. With Hua Yuxian's status, it was inevitable that she would be criticized as a wife. But if she went to a rich family and served them well for a few years, she would have a son by her side. She would have a good life in the future. But when Hua Yuxian was 18, she fell in love with someone. This person was called Wang Sheng. He was not from Jinling. He came from Yangzhou. To be precise, he was the son of a rich silk merchant in Yangzhou. He came to Jinling with his friends for business. He entered Ruyunlu by chance and was stunned by Hua Yuxian. It was love at first sight. Hua Yuxian was so famous. There were countless young men who liked her. Wang Sheng was not particularly outstanding among them. But love came out of nowhere. Hua Yuxian fell in love with Wang Sheng, who looked like a scholar among all the young men in Wuling. To be honest, although Wang Sheng came from a merchant family, his literary talent was not ordinary. His family hoped that he would pass the exam and become an official, but Wang Sheng thought it was too utilitarian. In his entire life, he only wished to travel freely. This was exactly the same as the flower fairy's wish since she was a child. On the first day they met, they drank and chatted all night. Wang Sheng's family was in business. He had traveled extensively since he was young. He heard many strange stories. Hua Yuxian, who had never left Ruyunlu, was naturally attracted by these stories. A talented man and a beautiful woman. Under the moonlight, everything came together naturally. Madame Ding looked down on Wang Sheng. She felt that Wang Sheng's family was just a business. She would rather be a concubine than a merchant's wife. And if Hua Yuxian really followed Wang Sheng, she would have to go back to Yangzhou. They would not be able to see each other again. She did not want Hua Yuxian to leave Jinling. "My good daughter, don't be blinded by men. I have seen many in these years." Madame Ding guided her patiently. "If you go to Yangzhou with him and suffer in the future, who will you complain to? You will be the one who suffers." Hua Yuxian smiled perfunctorily. She wanted to redeem herself. These years, she had saved a lot of money. Just as she was about to get enough money to redeem herself, she met an uninvited guest. It was Yingtian Prefecture's governor's wife's younger brother, Tong Qiushi. Chapter 186. Tong Qiushi took a liking to Hua Yuxian and waved his hand, offering 1,000 taels of gold to make her his concubine. His sister was the governor at that time, and Mother Ding did not dare to offend her. Many of the ladies in Entering Cloud's brothel were taken as concubines by officials and nobles. Mother Ding was happy to do them a favor. Firstly, those ladies were willing to do so. It was a good thing that they did not have to show their faces in public. Secondly, for Entering Cloud's brothel to be able to stand in Jinling for so many years, they needed favors. But Tong Qiushi took a liking to Hua Yuxian. Hua Yuxian's heart was all on Wang Sheng, and Mother Ding could see it clearly. She also knew that although her daughter looked like she was good with money, she had her own ideas. Now that she was in love with Wang Sheng, she would not take a liking to Tong Qiushi. She was afraid that she would rather die than live in dishonor and fight to the death. Mother Ding wanted to persuade Tong Qiushi, but did not expect this young Master Tong to be a tough nut to crack. That night, he sent people to cause a ruckus and almost burned down Entering Cloud's brothel. The governor was henpecked and naturally sided with his brother-in-law. Mother Ding could not say anything. While she was angry at Tong Qiushi for being unreasonable, there was nothing she could do. Although Entering Cloud's brothel knew many officials and rich families, a strong dragon could not defeat a local snake. No matter how beautiful Hua Yuxian was, she was just a brothel girl. Offending the governor for a brothel girl was not a good deal. Ever since Hua Yuxian met Wang Sheng, she only went on stage to play the guqin and became a performer. After a while, there were fewer people who could stand up for her. Tong Qiushi took Hua Yuxian's body contract and ordered people to put her under house arrest. He even picked a good day and planned to bring her into the residence. That was not all. He also ordered people to find out where Wang Sheng was and imprisoned him in the village, torturing and beating him every day. These things were found out by the ladies in Entering Cloud's brothel, and they secretly told Hua Yuxian. Hua Yuxian was worried about Wang Sheng's injury, but she was unable to protect herself. After a while, just like what Mother Ding said, she became seriously ill due to excessive worry. If the young masters are willing to help, I will not ask for anything else, the flower-traveling deity said earnestly. I heard that young Master Wang is being held captive in a manor in the north of the city. I would like to trouble the young masters to rescue young Master Wang. Tong Qiushi is after me. Because of my mistake, I have implicated young Master Wang. I have not been able to sleep at night. Wasn't this a vulgar book about a tyrant forcing a woman to marry him, breaking up a pair of lovebirds, and breaking them apart? The youths present all felt a sense of righteousness as a hero welling up in their hearts. That's not difficult. It's just saving someone. Don't worry, miss. That young Master Wang will definitely be brought out for you. Hua Yuxian's eyes lit up, and she bowed down gratefully. Thank you, young masters. Everyone quickly reached out to help her up. Lin Shuanghe looked at her thoughtfully and asked, May I ask, Miss Yuxian, what will happen after young Master Wang is rescued? Hua Yuxian was stunned and then smiled bitterly. If the young masters can rescue young Master Wang, please help me tell him that Yuxian and young Master Wang are not fated to be together. I have implicated young Master Wang previously. Please leave Jinling quickly and forget about Yuxian in the future. You don't plan to see him? He Yin, who had been sitting obediently at the side, finally asked. What do you plan to do? She had been hiding in the dark. Hua Yuxian did not know what to do. When she saw a masked person talking, she was shocked. But she quickly recovered and shook her head. Since he is the governor's wife's brother, I have no other choice. It is not up to me to decide. It is better to accept reality early. When she talked about her future, she was more carefree than when she talked about Wang Sheng. It was clear that she loved Wang Sheng more than she loved herself. Miss Yuxian, don't worry. The youth who had climbed in through the window first said, Since we have seen this, we must help until the end. Who would have thought that there would be such a disgusting bastard in broad daylight? How can we sit by and do nothing when a dog official is bullying people? Whether it is young Master Wang or you, we will ensure your safety. His words were sonorous and forceful, but how to ensure the safety would require further planning. While they were talking, footsteps came from outside. Hua Yuxian stood up and said, Someone is coming. I'll go out and hold them off. You guys leave quickly. Then he bowed deeply to the crowd and said, I'll leave the matter of Master Wang to you young masters. She pushed the door open and found an excuse to talk to the people outside. The rest of the youths climbed down from the window like they had just come. Yang Mingji, who had been waiting anxiously downstairs, heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that everyone had returned safe and sound. He was about to ask them what had happened inside, but he raised his head and saw that the youngsters all had gloomy expressions. So, he asked curiously, What happened? Why do you all look so pale? Lin Shuanghe sighed and shook his head. Seeing people suffer makes me feel bad. His friends told him what had happened. Yang Mingji was also angry. How can this be? Does the government not care? The people who did this are the government. And he disagreed. Do you still want them to put righteousness before family? Everyone was silent. After a while, someone said, since we have already promised Miss Yuxian, we will go and save young Master Wang first. Then we will find that despicable Tong Qiushi. Miss Yuxian's contract is in his hands. We will have him sign the contract and return it to Miss Yuxian. In this way, won't Miss Yuxian and young Master Wang be able to fly back to Yangzhou and live together? It is easy to save young Master Wang, and it is not difficult to get the contract back, Yin said carefully. But we will have to leave Jinling after the poetry competition. What if young Master Wang finds trouble with them after leaving Jinling? It is said that civilians do not fight with the government. Young Master Wang's family is just doing business. It is easy for the governor here to control them. It looks like we are helping them, but who knows if Tong Qiushi will vent all his anger on young Master Wang. The youths were acting on impulse, but she was a girl. She couldn't help but think more about Hua Yuxian. It seemed that Hua Yuxian had only asked them to save young Master Wang, and not herself because of this. Tong Qiushi had come for Hua Yuxian. They could save her now, but not forever. Hiru Fei, why are you destroying our prestige? Someone said unhappily. I think, brother, he is right. Lin Shuanghe held his fan. We have to think about the future before we can do anything. Huai Jin. He asked Xiao Ju, who was watching coldly. Do you have any good ideas? The youths looked at him. After all, he was the #1 in the Xianchang Hall. He was talented and smart. Maybe he could think of a way to get the best of both worlds. Xiao Ju looked at them and said, I do. Lin Shuanghe's eyes lit up. He praised, You really do have an idea? Tell us, what should we do? It's just the governor of Yingtian. Xiao Ju said carelessly. Show your identities, and he will retreat. Yin thought he could see clearly. It was too troublesome to go around in circles. A higher rank could crush people. The youths here all came from families of officials. There were many who were higher ranked than Yingtian. Didn't Tong Qiushi use his power to bully people? As long as someone had more power than him, they could bully him. Evil people bullied the weak and feared the strong. Just as he finished speaking, someone shook his head. No, if my family knew that I went to a brothel, they would break my legs. How can I show my identity? I can't either. Brother Huaijin, you are killing 10,000 enemies, but losing 8,000 of your own men. That's too violent. You should be more tactful. Xiao Ju hugged his sword and leaned against the wall. He looked at them lazily and said, Think about it slowly. I'm going back. He turned to leave, but Lin Shuanghe grabbed the corner of his shirt. He turned back and saw Lin Shuanghe seemed to have made up his mind. He waved his fan and said, So be it. You are afraid, but I am not. Even if my legs are broken, I will save Miss Yuxian and Master Wang. He even provoked his hesitant classmates. Are you still a man? Are you going to watch the girls jump into the fire pit? I, Lin Shuanghe, don't want to be associated with cowards like you. Stay away from me. I will save them alone and be a hero alone. The youths were indignant. Who are you calling cowards? Who isn't a man? I'm not afraid either. And he played with the end of his ponytail. His eyes were shining brightly, and he looked excited. So what if I'm beaten? It's not like I haven't been beaten before. It's worth it to be beaten for saving people. In this kind of situation, the more people there were, the more lively it would be. 2 people took the lead and said, The law cannot be enforced when there are too many people. The youths all agreed. Soon, they expressed that no matter what, they would save Master Wang and Miss Yuxian safely. Xiao Ju did not participate in their conversation, but the youths still pulled him along. They crowded around him and begged, Brother Huaijin, come with us too. With you watching over us, we won't make any mistakes. Ian stood at the side and looked at them with interest. Did they really think that Xiao Ju was their father? Xiao Ju looked impatient. Finally, he could not stand the persuasion of the crowd and reluctantly agreed. Thus, everyone returned to the inn and thought of a plan. Since we have to reveal our identities, why don't we go directly to the governor's residence? Someone said, Let them quickly return Miss Yuxian's body contract and let Master Wang go. How about that? No. Yang Mingxi shook his head lightly. According to the law, the body contract is in Tong Qiushi's hands. If we force it, it will be unreasonable. We may even be sued by the guilty party first, and that evil governor's family will be sued. Also, Master Wang is in his hands. It is not good to alert the enemy. What if Tong Qiushi kills Master Wang? What he said made sense. Lin Shuanghe asked sincerely, Mingji, do you have any ideas? Yao Mingji thought for a while. Let's save Master Wang first. Then, we will think of a way to get the body contract. After that, if Tong Qiushi comes looking for us, we will reveal our identities. At that time, everything will be settled. They can only ask for trouble. Wonderful. His friend's eyes lit up. If that's the case, then Tong Qiushi will have no choice but to suffer in silence. Even though they usually did not like to use their power to bully others at a time like this, it was quite refreshing to use their identity to suppress others. When dealing with scoundrels, there is no need to pay attention to the way of a gentleman. Let's see who is more scoundrel. And he raised his eyebrows. Then it's decided. We will split into two groups. One group will find the body contract. The other group will go save Master Wang. And he made the final decision. Everyone immediately split into groups. Xiao Zhu and Yin He each led a group. The governor's residence was heavily guarded. Xiao Zhu was skilled and led 4 people to the governor's residence to find the body contract. Yin He led the remaining people to the manor in the north of the city to save Master Wang. After everything was split, Yin raised his hand from the corner and asked weakly, Excuse me, what should I do? Xianshan Hall had selected 10 youths to go to Jinling. Yin had been forced to come by Lin Shuanghe. 10 people divided into 2 groups was suitable. 11 people were not easy to divide. Why don't we let him stay at the inn? He will only drag us down if he goes. No, Yin He frowned. If he stays at the inn, he may drag us down. If the soldiers find us and give us up, the plan will be ruined. Hiru Fei, you follow me. You're not skilled. When the time comes, you will be on the lookout. Understand? Yin said, Okay. She had already perfected the art of decorating the room. Yin didn't mind at all. Yin was still a bit nervous. Although the youths of the Xianchang dojo were the best in Shuajing, they were in Jinling, a place they weren't familiar with. Even if they had identities to protect them, before their identities were exposed, the other party might not be merciful. This was the first time they had to take charge and face the so-called big shot. Hopefully, everything would go smoothly. When night fell, the 2 groups set off. There was a manor in the north of the city that belonged to the Tong family. It was easy to find. There were often servants of the Tong family who were thrown into the manor because they made mistakes. They would be tortured to death within a few days. And he ordered people to buy a few horses and went to the manor under the cover of the night. When they arrived at the manor, the sky was already completely dark. The location was very desolate. It was surrounded by wilderness. It was not good to hide people. However, it seemed that Tong Qiushi did not have the intention to hide. With a patrol governor as her brother-in-law, she would be able to do whatever she wanted without any worries. Yin He and the other youths dismounted from their horses. Yin stood in the wilderness at the entrance of the manor to keep watch. He said, You stay here. If someone comes, blow the whistle. We will leave when we find the person. Understand? Yin nodded. She did not speak much. Before she left, Madam, he told her that the more she spoke, the more mistakes she would make. She had to be careful with her words. Yin He and the group quickly disappeared into the wilderness. Yin squatted in the weeds in the field. There were many mosquitoes in the summer. The parts of her clothes that were covered were still fine. However, her exposed neck and wrists were covered in red and swollen bumps after a short while. She did not dare scratch. She was afraid that the noise would attract people and disrupt Yenny's plan. She could only bear with it silently. After a long time, there seemed to be movement from inside. Yin stretched her neck. As expected, a group of people came out. The leader was Yin He. He was tall and carried a person on his back. It should be that Master Wang. Yin was delighted. She was saved. She was about to wave at Yin He when she heard a loud noise from outside. There are thieves. Catch the thieves. The one with the surname Wang has called for reinforcements. Catch them. It was unknown how many people lived in this manor. Previously, it was pitch black. Ian only thought that it was a desolate place. Now that she heard the shout, she saw torches lit up in all directions. With a rough look, she estimated that there were more than 100 torches. The plan was always foolproof. However, it was extremely difficult to save a person silently. She was on the lookout without making a sound. However, He and the rest created a huge commotion when they tried to save someone. Ian was anxious. There were so many people. They could not fight them head-on. They could only run away. She did not hesitate anymore. She stood out and blew a whistle to signal them to run. In fact, Ian did run away. The few youths were also panicked by the sudden appearance of the crowd. However, they were still protected by their usual skills. Without saying anything, they ran to the place where the horses were held. They leaped onto the horses and dashed out of the manor. The sound of the horses' hooves came closer and closer. A portion of the people chased after them, while a portion of them stayed in the manor. Ian was stunned. They left her behind. She tried her best to catch up with Ian, he, and the rest. However, how could 2 legs outrun 4 legs? She shouted with all her strength, "Wait for me, brother Ian." However, her voice was quickly drowned by the sound of the crowd. She ran until she was exhausted. She could not catch up with them anymore. Unexpectedly, someone whipped her from behind. Ian only felt pain on her back. A bloody mark appeared on her thin clothes. She staggered and fell to the ground. She turned around and looked at the crowd that was getting closer and closer. The person outside came back and scolded, "Boss," she ran away. "Don't worry." That person stared at Ian. His expression was ferocious. They even caught a young one. "If Master Tong wants her, send her to him." "Hey." That person lifted her chin and asked, "Was the person just now your accomplice? Who are they? Tell me their whereabouts. I can spare your life." Ian pursed her lips and did not speak. It was not the right time yet. She could only say it after she had obtained the contract. At that time, they would not be able to do anything if she revealed her identity. However, he and the rest would still come back to save her, right? Seeing that she refused to speak, the other party became angry. He kicked her, but Ian grabbed his knee and pulled her down. She jumped up from the ground and turned around to run. "Hey, she's good at fighting." The other party wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. "Catch her." After a long period of practice, her skills were actually not that bad. However, she could not win against so many people with her bare hands. If Ian had given her a weapon to defend herself, she would not be so weak. Ian was beaten up and carried to the leader's hands. The leader looked at her and made a tisk sound. He said, "Why are you wearing a mask? Is it because it's too ugly and you don't want to scare people?" Someone beside him made a malicious guess. "Why don't you take it off and take a look?" "That's true. If you were such a thing, you won't be able to see his face." "Take it off, take it off." Ian was shocked and struggled desperately. When she came to Jean Ling, Mrs. E had warned her repeatedly not to reveal her identity. If she took off the mask here, these people would not give it back to her. Even if she met her classmates in the future, they would only see Yan's face. Then, Yan could only be Hirufei for the rest of her life. Moreover, they might find out that she was a woman. Yan shivered and tried to get rid of the shackles. "Huh? Is he scared?" Someone said, "This mute seems to be someone who likes to look beautiful." When he heard that she had to take off the mask, he became anxious. "Now that you mention it, I want to take it off even more." The leader looked at Yan's struggle and said gloomily, "Take it off." Yan was directly pressed to the ground. Someone held her chin and forced her to raise her head. Then, someone tried to pry off the mask on her face. However, there was a mechanism on the mask. No one could open it except for her. That person tried for a long time, but the mask didn't move at all. Instead, he was tired and sweating. He looked at the leader and said, "Leader, this is not right. I can't take off the mask." "Why can't you take it off?" The leader shouted, "Let me do it." He grabbed Ian's neck and tried to pry off the mask. However, it was impossible for him to do it. Ian was also in pain. There was a mechanism on the mask. If someone tried to take it off by force, the harder they tried, the more uncomfortable she would feel. The people here didn't have any kindness to her. They didn't care whether she was in pain or not. Ian only felt that her head was about to explode. She thought, "Why hasn't Yenny come yet?" Why haven't they found out that I'm missing? The leader pressed her face to the ground. The smell of mud went into his mouth. Probably because the mask covered her face, he couldn't see Hyan's crying and panicking face. The leader was in a worse mood. He ordered the two people beside him hold him tightly. If I don't let him taste some pain, he won't know how powerful I am. I don't believe that there's a mouth in this world that I can't pry open. There is a series of ping, ping, pang, pang, pang sounds, as if they were looking for torture instruments. Even if they had never eaten pork, they had seen pigs run. Hyan had heard a lot of these private torture cases before. Brat, the leader used his shoe to nudge her face. Are you still not going to talk? Are you still waiting for your accomplices to come and save you? Don't wait anymore. They won't come back. You'd better be sensible and tell them who took Wang Sheng away. That way, you can suffer less. Hyan was stepped on until she couldn't move. She thought bitterly, Yanhe and the others have really forgotten about me. It was dark in the wilderness. She couldn't see the end of it. She could only hear the insects and birds in the forest. There seemed to be the sound of horse hooves. She put her ear to the ground and heard it clearly. She was startled at first, but then she gradually felt hope. She turned her head slightly and looked at the end of the wilderness. It seemed like someone was coming on a horse. They're here. They wouldn't abandon me. Hyan was ecstatic. The sound of horse hooves came closer and closer. The people in the village also heard it. Everyone was startled at first. Then they raised their torches to look at the person. Under the light of the torches, a person and a horse came closer and closer. In the end, they saw a young man wearing a white robe and a silver crown. It wasn't Yanhe. It was Xiaoju. Hyan's smile froze. Her mask covered her stunned expression. Xiaoju pulled the reins and dismounted when he was about 10 steps away from Hyan. He had a long sword at his waist. He stood tall and straight. The silver python embroidered on his white robe shone brightly. He walked out of the darkness like a warm sun, brightening up the entire sky. The young man's gaze swept across the fierce people in the village. Finally, his gaze landed on Hyan, who was pressed to the ground. Sorry, I'm late. Chapter 187. Hyan did not think that the person who came would be Xiaoju. She thought that Yanhe and the rest would realize that she was missing after a long time and turn around to look for her. Although the possibility of this was very small. She did not think that it would be Xiaoju who came. Didn't he bring the other person to the governor's manor to look for the slave contract? When the leader saw Xiaoju coming, he was also shocked. This youth was different from the youth who was wearing a mask. His appearance and clothes did not look like he was from an ordinary family. He hesitated and thought about Tong Qiushi. He did not care about anything else and shouted, "This fellow's accomplice is here. Capture him." Hyan was shocked and blurted out, "Brother Huaijin, they have many people. Run." Although Xiaoju's skills were outstanding, there were too many people here. How could he deal with them alone? It seemed that Yanhe and the rest did not follow. Things were not looking good. She was anxious and forgot her original intention. If Xiaoju ran away now, what would she do? Xiaoju's gaze swept past her and only curved his lips. Hyan did not understand the meaning of this smile. Then, he heard the sound of horse hooves not far away. It was exceptionally bright in the night. Yanhe and the rest came. This time, Hyan guessed wrong. The people who came were not Yanhe, but 10 guards. Before they came to Jinling, their families were worried that something would go wrong on the long journey. Thus, they each chose outstanding guards to protect them. Although this group of youths did not hide their visit to the brothel from the guards, they did not dare to tell them about the rescue. After all, it was too dangerous. If they told the guards, they would most likely be stopped. However, the appearance of this group of guards was a good thing. Xiaoju was too lazy to even draw his sword. The guards behind him did not wait for his orders. The people in the manor were all Tong Qiushi's henchmen. How could they be compared to the guards who were carefully selected from the Shuo capital? In a moment, there were cries and howls. It was a mess. However, no one paid any attention to Hyan, who was pressed down on the ground. Hyan put her hands on the ground and was about to get up when she saw a pair of boots stop in front of her. She raised her head and saw the youth looking at her. He held out a hand to her. That hand was slender and white, with distinct joints. It was clean and made one think of a fine jade carving. Her hands were covered in mud from the fight earlier. Ian hesitated and did not reach out his hand. The young man seemed to be impatient. After a moment, he grabbed her elbow and pulled her up from the ground. "Thank you," she whispered. Xiao Ju's gaze fell on the whip marks on her back. She didn't say anything. In just a short while, the guards had already knocked down all the people here and tied them up like pigs. "Who hit you with a whip just now?" he asked. Ian turned to look at him. Without waiting for her to speak, the leader cried out, "Young master, please spare my life. Young master, please spare my life. I didn't do it on purpose." "So it was you," Xiao Ju said indifferently. He unhurriedly bent down and picked up the whip that had been trampled on the ground. It was this whip that had lashed Ian's back. He handed the whip to Ian, hit him. "What?" Ian didn't understand. "Treat him the way he treats you." Xiao Ju lifted the corner of his robe and lazily sat down on the chair facing the group of people. He stretched out his hand to Ian as if he was watching a good show. "Please." Ian looked at the whip and fell into deep thought. He didn't hit him. The leader started to cry and howl again. He begged for mercy with tears and snot running down his face. "Why?" The youth looked at him playfully and raised his eyebrows. "You don't dare?" The leader was delighted. He thought that the masked boy looked weak and young. He might be soft-hearted. He begged again. "No." Ian heard his own voice. It was small and firm. "Can I hit him a few more times?" The leader was stunned. Xiao Ju was also stunned. After a while, he said with interest, "Up to you." Ian raised the whip. To be honest, although she was hit, she only got hit once. She said she wanted to hit him a few more times to vent her anger. She didn't want to come to Jinling this time. She was just being held up by Lin Shuanghe and his men. She didn't care if she came, but she had to suffer such an unexpected disaster. She felt very wronged. Since a punching bag had appeared in front of her, it would be a waste if she didn't hit him. Moreover, he wasn't a good person. He was a dog that bullied others because of his master's power. She would hit him a few more times and take it as revenge for young Master Wang and Hua Yuxian. "Pa!" The crisp sound of the whip echoed in the empty night. The lackeys who had been crying and crying just now didn't dare to speak anymore. Only the screams of their leader echoed in the air. Ian was very careful. She didn't hurt his bones. It hurt a little, but it was all superficial. She hit him a total of 10 times. After 10 times, the arrogant leader's face was full of tears. He was on the verge of death. He didn't even have the strength to scream. However, the masked brat obediently placed the whip in front of him and even said in a warm voice, "Sorry to offend you." The leader fainted from anger. Ian walked to Xiao Ju. Xiao Ju glanced at him. "Done." "Done." He nodded, stood up, turned, and walked out. "If you're done, let's go." The leader fainted after receiving such a beating. Someone in the crowd gathered his courage and shouted, "You! Who are you? You're so arrogant. Aren't you afraid that the governor will find trouble with you? The governor won't let you go." The white-robed young man heard and turned around. The silver python at the corner of his robe was beautiful and evil. His eyes were cold. He laughed sarcastically. "I'm afraid that he won't come. Remember to look for me at entering Cloud's Tower. I'll be waiting for you." After saying this, he no longer paid any attention to those people and continued to walk forward, following the guards to where they came from. Ian followed beside him. When they reached the horse, Xiao Ju asked her, "Can we get on?" Ian nodded and climbed up with difficulty. As soon as she sat down, she felt that there was someone behind her. She was shocked. She didn't expect Xiao Ju to be on the same horse as her. She couldn't calm down. Firstly, Xiao Ju was a clean person. She was covered in mud. She was dirty and disheveled. However, he didn't dislike her. Secondly, he hadn't been so close to anyone for a long time because of her identity. The guards rode their horses out of the manor. Xiao Ju's horse moved slowly. They took care of her because she was injured. It was hard to bear the pain from the bumpy ride. Ian's heart warmed. The guards didn't wait for them. Unknowingly, only the two of them were left behind. Ian saw that there was no one around and asked in a small voice, "Brother Huijin, why are you here?" "It's on the way." "On the way?" They weren't even in the same direction. What was on the way? She was about to speak when Xiao Ju asked, If I didn't appear, what would you do? Then I would betray you. Tian didn't even blink as she said, Your father is General Guangwu. Tong Qiushi wouldn't dare to act rashly. Xiao Zhu laughed in anger at her words. You have a good plan. We are in the same boat. Tian said without changing her expression. Xiao Zhu snorted and didn't continue speaking. Tian pursed her lips. Actually, if Xiao Zhu didn't come, she probably wouldn't have betrayed them. She would have to hold on for as long as she could. But if she said that, wouldn't it seem like she was easy to bully? She had to let Yin He and the others know that she was very fierce. She would be very angry and condemn them for abandoning their friends. After some time, the road in front of them was no longer a wilderness. It became bustling and lively. They arrived at the city. The guards had probably left after receiving Xiao Zhu's orders. Xiao Zhu found an inn and dismounted with He Yin. They walked into the inn. Wait. He Yin grabbed her sleeve. Brother Huaijin, are we going to meet up with Brother Nanguang and the others? What are we going to do? Stay at an inn? Xiao Zhu sized her up. Are you sure you want to meet Yin Nanguang and the others like this? He Yin was stunned. Only then did she remember that she was beaten up in the village. Not to mention her injuries, her clothes were also dirty. She mumbled, I see. Thank you, Brother Huaijin. Xiao Zhu called for a room and asked the inn's waiter to get hot water. He Yin became nervous again and said to him, Brother Huaijin, when I'm bathing, I don't like people around. Can you leave me alone for a while? Xiao Zhu looked at her in disbelief. I'm your servant? He Yin, you're thinking too much. He mocked. You can bathe yourself, but what about applying medicine? Those are all minor injuries. It's not a big deal. He Yin said, You're very strange. He stared into He Yan's eyes and took a step forward. He Yin raised her head and looked back at him nervously. Xiao Zhu said thoughtfully, Your guards are also too cold to you. When they came to Jinling this time, all the youths were accompanied by their families' guards. These youths were of high status and were valued by their families. The guard were always worried about them. But on the way here, He Rufei's guards were the only ones who were especially cold. Well, they weren't cold, but they weren't very close. For example, tonight, if it were Lin Shuanghe's guards and they knew that Lin Shuanghe was injured, they would have called for a doctor to personally treat Lin Shuanghe. But He Rufei's guards didn't even ask. He Rufei was treated coldly in the He family. But He Rufei was He Yuanqing's eldest son, so it wasn't to this extent. He Yan's heart jumped. She didn't expect Xiao Zhu to notice this. But how could she explain that she was a girl? Not many people in the He family knew about it. Those guards were also ordered by He Yuanshang to not get too close to her. But this became a fatal flaw. He Yan tried her best to appear calm. I have a cold personality and don't like to have too much contact with people. I told them not to get close to me. Even a child wouldn't believe her words. Xiao Zhu lowered his eyes to look at her. After a while, he nodded and said, Okay. He ordered the innkeeper to send in clean clothes and medicine for injuries. He went out and left the room to He Yin. After Xiao Zhu left, He Yin finally let out a sigh of relief. Dealing with Xiao Zhu always made people nervous. It was probably because he was sharp and handsome. Just like the giant python with silver scales embroidered on the corner of his robe, he was beautiful yet dangerous, indifferent yet cold. She soaked her whole body in hot water, and the warm feeling gradually calmed her flustered mood. Thinking about what had happened tonight, she gradually recalled a secret excitement. She was still a child in her teens. No matter how obedient she was normally, she still wanted to take an adventure. Although she was beaten up badly, she thought that Yin He and the others had already rescued young Master Wang. Since Xiao Zhu was here, it meant that the matter of the contract was going smoothly. The Flower Fairy's request was almost half successful. Even after many years, when he thought of this matter, it was enough to make him proud and happy. She washed her body and applied a layer of medicine on her back with difficulty in front of the mirror. Then she changed into the clothes that the innkeeper sent over. She carefully took off her mask. Just now, the people from the manor came to forcefully take off her mask. Although they didn't succeed, they made the mask tighten. There were marks on her face and faint bruises at the corner of her mouth. He Yin sighed. She used a handkerchief to wipe her face. She was shocked when she heard someone knocking on the door. She hurriedly put on her mask and said, "Coming." Then she opened the door. The door opened and Xiao Ju walked in. He glanced at her and said, "Done?" Yin nodded. His gaze fell on Yin. He suddenly pulled the corners of his mouth. "There is something I am very curious about." Yin instinctively replied, "What is it? Did you really wear a mask because you're ugly?" He asked slowly. Under the bright light, the youth's silhouette was beautiful. His eyes were as moving as autumn water, but they were bright as if they could see through everything. Yin almost cried out in that instant. But immediately, she kept her biggest secret. Of course, she even mimicked Xiao Ju and laughed coldly. Not everyone is as handsome as Brother Huaijin. Second young master Xiao choked when he heard first young master He, who had always done things quietly, suddenly explode with anger. Then, he raised his eyebrows and said carelessly, "That's true." He turned and called Yin, "Since you are done, let's go." Yin asked, "Where are we going?" Entering Cloud's Tower. Entering Cloud's Tower was brightly lit. In the attic, Huaiyuxian looked nervously at the door. A group of youths were sitting in the room. A scholarly-looking youth was lying on the bed. This youth was very frail and delicate. He had already changed his clothes, but there were still scars on his face. At first glance, he looked a bit disheveled. At this moment, his eyes were tightly closed, and he was sleeping. I have roughly bandaged and applied medicine for him. Lin Shuanghe waved his fan. They are all superficial wounds. But this Master Wang's body is too weak, so he looked a bit scary. After some rest, he will be fine. Then, he muttered, he said he would only practice medicine for women in the future. He made an exception before he finished his apprenticeship. Huaiyuxian bowed to Lin Shuanghe. "Thank you, young Master Lin. It is my duty." "Miss Yuxian, no need to be so polite." Lin Shuanghe smiled. He always had a good attitude towards girls. Tong Qiushi only wanted to torture Wang Sheng. He did not want to kill him right from the start. After all, he wanted to keep Wang Sheng alive to threaten Huaiyuxian. So Wang Sheng was still alive. The door opened. Everyone's eyes brightened, but quickly dimmed. It was Madame Ding. Madame Ding panicked. She twisted her handkerchief and said in a low voice, "Yuxian, why don't you take Wang Sheng away from Jinling before Master Tong finds out?" When this group of people brought the injured Wang Sheng into Cloud's Tower, Madame Ding was also shocked. But if she chased him out now, Wang Sheng would undoubtedly die. She had no choice but to let them in. Madame Ding did not know the identities of these young masters. She only knew that they were rich young masters from Jinling City who wanted to have fun and come to the rescue of injustice. But while this was fun, there were endless consequences. She was absent-mindedly dealing with the guests downstairs. Finally, she felt that she could not hide the truth. This was no small matter, so she went upstairs to talk. Huaiyuxian shook her head. "We can hide now, but we can't hide forever. Moreover, if Yuxian and Master Wang leave, what will you do?" Tong Qiushi will definitely not let Cloud's Tower go. Since he dared to set fire to Cloud's Tower once, he will dare to do it again. Will he disregard the lives of the other sisters for Yuxian? Then what do you want to do? Madame Ding panicked. "Tong Qiushi wants me." Huaiyuxian glanced at Wang Sheng on the bed. Her expression softened. "As long as I listen to him and beg him, Master Wang will be saved. At least he can leave Yangzhou safely. Besides," Huaiyuxian hesitated, "there's a young master who hasn't returned yet. If he falls into the hands of those villains, and I leave with Sir Wang, they might vent their anger on the young master. If I stay here, Tong Qiushi may let them go for my sake." When she said this, the expressions of the youths in the room changed. "That's not necessary." A voice sounded. Then the door opened. Two youths walked in. The white-robed youth in front looked lazy. "It's not to the point of sacrificing you." "Huaijin, Brother He." Suddenly, a clamor of voices rang out in the room. Then, all the youngsters gathered around with a hula sound. I knew that Brother Huaijin would definitely be able to rescue Brother He. Brother He is blessed by the heavens. How could he be so easily caught? "Brother He, are you all right? Are you hurt?" Yin was stunned. It was the first time she was treated like the moon surrounded by stars. It was also the first time she was cared for like this. For a moment, He was overwhelmed by the favor and almost forgot about the fact that he had been abandoned. Ian shuffled forward and scratched his head. His expression was very uncomfortable. He walked in front of her and said sorry. Ian stilled. At that time, I was too panicked. Speaking of this, Yanhee's expression was vexed. I only cared about taking Master Wang away. I thought you'd follow. I didn't think. He could not explain himself. He Rufei was really an insignificant person in the Xianchang dojo. For a proud son of heaven like him, he Rufei did not even enter his eyes. This time in Jinling City, he Rufei did not participate too much in the youth's activities. Sometimes, if he did not take the initiative to speak, everyone would have forgotten that he Rufei was in this group of people. Therefore, when the villager made his move, none of them remembered that there was a sentry around. When they met up with the other group, Xiaoju looked at them and asked with a frown, "Why don't I see he Rufei?" At this time, Yanhee and the rest remembered that they seemed to have forgotten about he Rufei. Yanhee was about to look for him when he was stopped by Xiaoju. Xiaoju looked at him lightly and said, "I'll go." That look made him feel ashamed and unable to show his face. How could he leave his classmate behind? Was this what a gentleman would do? Moreover, he Rufei's skills were extremely weak, and he was as timid as a mouse. If he fell into the group of people, he would not have a good time. The more he thought about it, the more scared he became. He was about to get on the horse when Xiaoju pulled him down. "I'll go," Yanhee said. "You can't do it alone. They have a lot of people." "I'll go with the guards," Xiaoju said lightly. "You take the others to entering Cloud's restaurant." Yanhee stared blankly as Xiaoju rode the horse and disappeared at the end of the street. His heart felt extremely uncomfortable. After arriving at entering Cloud's restaurant, he did not have the heart to do other things. He was thinking about he Rufei and was afraid that Xiaoju would not be able to save him if she was late, or not be able to save him at all. Until this moment, seeing he Rufei appear safe and sound, Yanhee's heart finally relaxed. What followed was endless guilt and disdain towards himself. "Hit me." The young man raised his head, his ponytail bouncing up and down. He was clearly apologizing, but he also showed an arrogant attitude. "I'm sorry." Ian looked at him in shock and wanted to laugh. She held back her laughter and said, "It's okay. Brother Huaijin came to save me. They did not have time to beat me up. I did not lose anything." Xiaoju's eyes moved slightly and laughed, but did not expose her lie. Hearing He Yan's words, Yanhee breathed a sigh of relief and felt much better. The youth asked, "Brother Huaijin, now that everyone is here and the contract is in our hands, Master Wang has been saved, what should we do next?" Mother Ding was anxious. "Since everyone is here, let's quickly send Master Wang out of Jinling." She knew that Hua Yuxian was right. Hua Yuxian was the most important. If Hua Yuxian left with them, the entire Entering Clouds restaurant would be in trouble. If they sent Wang Xing out, at least this trip would not be in vain. Hua Yuxian nodded and walked to Wang Sheng's side. Looking at her lover's face, her eyes were filled with longing and tears. After this parting, the mountains were high and the rivers were long. They would never meet again in this lifetime. She was just about to help Wang Xing up when suddenly a sword blocked in front of her. Hua Yuxian looked up and saw the most handsome youth in a white robe sitting on the chair. He did not look at her and pointed the tip of his sword at her, blocking her way with the sword hilt. "No need, young master." Hua Yuxian did not understand. The youth looked at her calmly and smiled. "Why are you running? They will be here soon." "What?" Mother Ding was shocked and trembled. "Who are they?" As if to prove his words, in the next moment, there was a hurried knock on the door. The door was pushed open and the girl, called Kai Lian, whom they had met before, rushed in. She said in a panic, "Mother, traveling immortal, bad news." Master Tong brought the officers from the governor's residence and surrounded Entering Clouds restaurant. He said that Entering Clouds restaurant is hiding a criminal and helping the villain. He wants us to hand him over quickly. What should we do? Mother Ding turned to look at them and was terrified. What should we do? Chapter 188. Below the Cloud Entering restaurant, it was completely surrounded. The guests had all been chased out, and the soldiers blocked the entrance. The girl stood on both sides in fear, looking uneasily at the man in the lead. It was a man wearing a dark green robe with gold lining. His clothes were extremely exquisite and luxurious, but the more luxurious it was, the more it made his face look shabbier. He was extremely tall and strong, and his skin was very dark. His eyes were almost a slit, and his face was oily. Standing there, he looked fierce and barbaric, and his expression was fierce. This was the younger brother of the governor's wife, that young Master Tong Qiushi. Tong Qiushi scolded, "Go capture him." The next moment, someone's voice sounded. Using the word capture, this young master does not seem very polite. Tong Qiushi looked up and saw a group of people coming down leisurely. The one who spoke was a 15 or 16-year-old youth. He had a graceful bearing and held a folding fan in his hand. He even had a gentle and refined smile on his face, even though that smile was very dazzling. Walking with him were several youths. They were about the same age as him, and all of them were handsome and had an extraordinary bearing. Hua Yuxian and Mother Ding walked behind those youths. At a glance, it looked like those youths were protecting her behind them. Little b asterisk st asterisk rd. You are the ones who took away Wang? You came to this young master's manor and smashed it? Tong Qiushi asked fiercely. He was having fun outside when he suddenly heard that a thief had entered the manor. Before he had time to be surprised, he received another piece of news that Wang Sheng had been taken away from the manor. Tong Qiushi immediately ordered people to search for Hua Yuxian's body contract in the study. It really was gone. He was shocked and furious. He was shocked that someone dared to mess with him, and furious that a small merchant dared to be so arrogant. Without another word, Tong Qiushi did not even have time to change his clothes before he led his men into the cloud entering in. Hey, you can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want. Lin Shuanghe looked at him with a smile. What proof do you have that we did it? What proof? Of course, it was because this group of people had actually swaggered around and told people to look for them at entering Cloud's restaurant. Tong Qiushi had never seen such a fearless person. Which family are you from? Tong Qiushi narrowed his eyes. Are you tired of living? And you? He looked at Hua Yuxian. B asterisk tch. It's your fortune that I've taken a liking to you. You've challenged my patience time and time again, and even colluded with outsiders to commit such shameless acts. Today, I'm going to catch all of you in one fell swoop and throw you into jail. I'm going to make you beg for death. I'm going to let you know the consequences of offending someone you shouldn't have. As soon as these words were spoken, a young man behind Lin Shuanghe couldn't help but laugh out loud. When he realized that everyone was looking at him, he waved his hand in embarrassment. Sorry. I just thought it was funny. And he lost interest and said, Can't these ruffians change the way they talk when they talk tough? It's always the same. I'm really sick of hearing it. Tong Qiushi was furious that they didn't care about him like this. Take them down. The officers and soldiers behind her immediately stepped forward. Mrs. Ding was shocked. At this moment, suddenly, dozens of guards in black rushed out from all directions of entering Cloud's tower like ghosts. They stood in front of the youths and silently pulled out the sabers at their waists. The sabers shone brightly. In an instant, cold light overflowed and a murderous aura filled the air. The girls in the restaurant jumped in fright and screamed in unison. Hua Yuxian also couldn't help but grip the corners of her skirt and look in shock at the youths in front of her. Yanni tilted his head and played with the ponytail that hung in front of his chest. He said, Boring. No one knew where these guards had come from or when they had sneaked in a Cloud entering restaurant. Other than Xiao Ju, these guards were all under his orders after they returned from the village. They must have received his orders and had been hiding here. How dare you? Tong Qiushi was also shocked. He was used to being a tyrant in Jinling. Even the rich families of Jinling didn't dare to act rashly in front of him because of his brother-in-law. He didn't expect to bite a hard bone this time. Not only did they kidnap people right under his nose, even now, with the soldiers at the door, they still dared to call people to fight. Swords were drawn, and bows were on the verge of breaking out. Tong Qiushi stepped back. Although he was a tyrant, to him, he was a useless person who didn't know anything. He was afraid that these guards would implicate him. He said, "This is looking down on an official of the imperial court. Take them down now, regardless of whether they live or die." Yang Mingji stood out and said warmly, "Young master, you don't have an official position. We're looking down on an official of the imperial court. You kidnapped my people." Putting aside whether or not young Master Wang was kidnapped by us, he's from Yangzhou and not your servant. How can he be your people? Could it be that you set up a torture chamber and imprison people for no reason? If we're talking about this, the one who broke the law is you. Yang Mingji was good at arguing. How could Tong Qiushi win against him? He was forced to the point where he couldn't say anything. He became angry out of humiliation and said, "Don't waste time with them. Kill them. Kill." Someone spoke. His voice was light, as if he found it funny. He tilted his head and said, "Are you sure?" This youth was very tall. Even if he wasn't standing at the front, he could be seen at a glance. In addition, his appearance was outstanding. It was hard for people to ignore him. He stood lazily and said lightly, "If you say kill first, then we will attack. Even if we kill you, it's just to protect ourselves. It's not considered murder. If you want to compete, who will die first, you or us?" He looked at Tong Qiushi with a half-smile. Being looked at by those clear eyes, Tong Qiushi couldn't help but feel a chill run down his spine. He didn't know where this group of people came from or what their identities were. He was hesitant at first, but when he saw Hua Yuxian standing in the crowd, he became bold. No matter who they were, Jinling was his territory. He couldn't let a bunch of immature brats laugh at him. Everyone in the city knew that he was going to support Hua Yuxian. If he didn't settle this today, and Hua Yuxian appeared in Sunrise Restaurant safe and sound, or with Wang Sheng, he would become the laughingstock of Jinling City. When had Tong Qiushi ever suffered like this? His face darkened. He gritted his teeth and said, "Kill." Before he could finish, another voice came from outside the door. "Stop. Everyone stop." Everyone turned around and saw a middle-aged man in an official's robe striding in. When they saw this person, the girls in the restaurant and Madame Ding quickly bowed and said respectfully, "Lord Liu." This was the governor of Jinling City, Liu Rue. When Tong Qiushi saw Liu Rue, he immediately went forward. He was tall and strong, but he acted like a child in front of Liu Rue. "Brother-in-law, you're finally here. These little bastards kidnapped my people and are still so arrogant. Now they dare to attack the soldiers. Brother-in-law, they don't care about you at all." Liu Rue said angrily, "Shut up." Tong Qiushi was stunned. He didn't say anything. Ian looked at Liu Rue. This Jinling City's governor looked different from his scoundrel brother-in-law. He had the appearance of a scholar, and even had a bit of a righteous aura. However, looking at how much he indulged his relatives, it was obvious that he was a hypocrite. Liu Rue saluted everyone in the hall and said, "I'm sorry. Qiushi is young and reckless. This is all a misunderstanding. Miss Yuxian, are you hurt?" Hua Yuxian did not expect this arrogant and unapproachable governor to ask her so kindly today. She was confused for a moment and replied, "Thank you for your concern. Everything is fine with Yuxian." Tong Qiushi was furious. These people came to cause trouble, but his brother-in-law didn't side with him. Why was he being so nice to that *tch? Madame Ding, on the other hand, saw through the situation. She glanced at the group of youths and sighed. Her daughter was lucky to have met such a noble person. "That's good." Liu Rue smiled and looked at the others. He asked, "Young masters, you're not from Jinling, right? Where are you from? What are you doing in Jinling?" Liu Rue's heart was pounding. Tonight, he was outside when he heard someone report that a thief had broken into the governor's residence. Liu Rue was shocked. Why would someone want to attack the governor's residence? Later, the servant reported that the Flower Yoshin's contract was lost. Liu Rue had also heard about Tong Qiushi's matter. However, he had always turned a blind eye to these matters and allowed Tong Qiushi to bully others. This time, Liu Rue originally thought that it was Wang Sheng who sent people to take revenge. At first, he was angry. A small merchant dared to be so impudent. However, later, a servant sent an invitation saying that it was found in the study. It was probably left behind by the person who came. Lu Rue was stunned when he saw the invitation. It was an invitation to the Jinling poetry meet. The person who was invited was called Yin He. He came from the left and right Vanguard commander's residence. He was just the governor of Jinling. He didn't dare to be compared to a primary second-rank high official in Shuajing. Lu Rue was a smart person. The person who came didn't leave anything behind except for this poetry meet invitation. It was obvious that he was purposely showing his identity. He didn't dare to interfere. Before he could warn Tong Qiushi not to act rashly, he heard that Tong Qiushi had brought soldiers to block the person at entering Cloud's restaurant. Lu Rue was so frightened that he immediately rushed over. Luckily, he was able to stop them before they acted. Sir is very perceptive. We are indeed not from Jinling. Yang Mingji gave a modest smile. We came from Shuajing to Jinling specifically to attend the Jinling poetry meet. It really was a poetry meet. Lu Rue had an idea. He just didn't know which Vanguard commander's son was in this group. His mind was in turmoil, but he didn't show it on his face. He only smiled and said, Jinling City is really lucky to have such important guests like the young masters. I don't think so. Lin Shuanghe waved his fan. Just now, Sir's relative was yelling at us. It scared us to death. He also called us little bastards. Lin Shuanghe pretended to be distressed as he thought. In my life, it was the first time someone called me that. When I go back, I'll tell my father and see if he will be angry. After all, I'm a little bastard and he's... Lu Rue was sweating like rain. He kicked Tong Qiushi to the ground and scolded, disrespectful, hurry and apologized to the young master. Tong Qiushi was kicked unexpectedly. He was furious. He didn't know Yin He's identity and wasn't as nervous as Lu Rue. He struggled and said, They kidnapped my people. Not to mention that Wang Sheng, they also stole Hua Yoxian's body contract. The body contract you're talking about is this? And he took out a piece of paper from his sleeve. When he saw this piece of paper, Tong Qiushi said, Yes, this is it. You really did steal it. Young Master Tong's words are wrong. This body contract has always been in entering Cloud's tower. After all, Ding Mama has raised Lady Yuxian for so many years. If it's yours, how much silver did young Master Tong spend? Is there a record of it in the accounts? Tong Qiushi couldn't speak. He was used to doing business without any cost. Even women were the same. He had taken a fancy to Hua Yuxian and forced Ding Mama to give him the body contract without spending a single cent. When he asked about the silver in the accounts, of course there was no trace. Lin Shuanghe laughed. Could it be that Ding Mama gave Lady Yuxian to you of her own accord? Such a living person, and she gave it to you for free. In our Shuajing, even if you give a cat or a dog, you have to give something in return. What? In your Jinling, you can give it away for free. Or, he changed the topic and his smile became brighter. Is this how it is in the governor's residence? This was accusing him of being greedy and accepting bribes. Lu Rue's expression changed. Without waiting for Tong Qiushi to retort, he immediately said, This kid must be crazy to speak nonsense. The body contract is naturally in Lady Yuxian's hands. As for Lady Yuxian being Tong Qiushi's person, that is nonsense. Lady Yuxian is from entering Cloud's tower. The entire Jinling city knows that. She has nothing to do with our Lu family. Tong Qiushi still wanted to speak, but Lu Rue's quick-witted servant had already stepped forward and used a handkerchief to gag him. Yang Mingji's expression was gentle, as if he really believed Lu Rue's words. He kindly said, I see. However, official Lu should teach your own cousin well, since he has nothing to do with Lady Yuxian. Yet he goes around saying that Lady Yuxian is from your Lu family. He even wants to kill us. In this way, won't Lord Lu be blamed for all the evil that young Master Tong does in the future? As the saying goes, one's glory is glory, one's loss is loss. Others will not differentiate between official Lu and young Master Tong. It will all be counted as official Lu's fault. This was a warning to him. Lu Rui broke out in cold sweat. Before he could think of a response, the young man with a high ponytail gave him a sideways glance and said in an unfriendly tone, "The flower fairy is our friend. Whoever bullies the flower fairy is going against us." He turned to Hua Yuxian. Although his eyes were looking at the beauty, his words were directed at Lu Rui and the others. "Lady Yuhua, if anyone makes trouble for you in the future, you can ask the commander of Shuo Jing's vanguard to find me at the Yan residence. I will definitely stand up for you." "And me?" Lin Shuanghe smiled and said, "Although our Lin family has no soldiers, we know a few people in the palace. My grandfather often sees the Empress Dowager. Our Lin family can protect you for such a small matter. My father is the Minister of Internal Affairs, the Minister of Imperial Servants, the Minister of Revenue." Every time these youths said a name, Lu Rui's heart would tremble. In just a moment, his clothes were all soaked in sweat. Whether they were lying or not, he only needed to ask around at the Jinling poetry meet to find out. But even without asking, Lu Rui believed 80% of it. They all looked heroic and proud. If they were not from high officials, they would not dare to be so arrogant. They seemed to be talking to Hua Yuxian, but they were actually warning her. Lu Rui felt bitter. Who would have thought that a woman from a brothel could make so many young masters from high officials support her? Lu Rui squeezed out a smile and said, "Young masters, what are you talking about? Lady Yuhua is from Jinling. If anyone dares to bully her, Yingtian Prefecture will be the first to disagree. Why should we trouble young masters?" Lin Shuanghe smiled slightly. "Official Lu, you have to remember what you said today. A man's words cannot be taken back." Lu Rui said seriously, "The entire cloud entering tower can testify for me." "Very good." And he raised an eyebrow. "You are finally pleasing to the eye." Lu Rui was angry at his disrespectful attitude, but he did not dare to say anything. Yang Mingji bowed to him. "Then in the future, please take care of Cloud entering tower and our friend, Lady Yuhua." Of course, of course." Lu Rui smiled. After a while of probing and exchanging greetings, Lu Rui took Tong Qiushi and the soldiers and left. Tonight, when he returned to the Lu family, how to teach Tong Qiushi a lesson was his business. Inside Cloud entering tower, Kai Lian closed the door. The tower exploded with cheers. The girls were very happy. Tong Qiushi had done many evil things in Jinling. The girls were angry but did not dare to say anything. Because of the Lady Yuhua incident, everyone was worried and afraid. Now that the dust had settled, Lu Rui left resentfully after being snubbed. It really made people proud. The Lady Yuhua walked in front of the youths. She was also very excited. With tears in her eyes, she suddenly knelt down and kowtowed to everyone. She said loudly, "Yuhua is unable to repay the great kindness of the young masters. If there is a next life, I will definitely work like an ox or a horse. I will not refuse. Lady Yuxian, please rise." Everyone was shocked. They scrambled to pull her up. They were somewhat proud, but also a little uncomfortable. They all said, "This is what we should do. A real man should help when he sees injustice. The teachers in our academy teach us this. That Tong Qiushi is really despicable. But with us here, you do not need to fear them in the future." Mother Ding looked at them and could not help but smile. She wondered what this group of youths was like. Although they all had their own little tempers, they did not have the frivolity of the aristocrats. Although ordinary people pursued and adored, they were mostly disdainful of the brothel girls. They would not take the initiative to say things like "they are our friends." However, they spoke frankly and naturally, without the slightest hesitation. The Jinling poetry competition this time invited famous scholars from Dawei. Scholars from all over the world would gather here. Everyone had their own strengths. But this time, the youths from Shuojing Academy won. The boat docked. Hien and the group walked down. The Lady Yuhua smiled and said, "Young masters, please follow me." So much time had passed. With the age of Xiao Ju and the rest, they could not be called young masters. But the Lady Yuhua still used the title from the past. Hien was momentarily dazed. It was as if this was still the summer of the past. They came to Jinling together on a boat and secretly sneaked into the brothel. They were shocked by the beauty of spring inside. The cloud brothel was still the cloud brothel, but it looked much older. The signboard at the door was rewritten, but it was not as lively as before. Lin Shuanghe pointed at the signboard. These words, "There was a heavy rain last year." The Lady Yuhua smiled and said, "I heard that the signboard at the door was blown off. Mother sent someone to rewrite it, but I also feel that it is not as good as before. It used to be grand, but now it was neat and beautiful." It was not the old building of the past. They walked in with the group. Seeing the Lady Yuhua leading a group of people in, the girls inside were stunned. An older girl came forward and asked, "Lady Yuhua, look who this is?" The Lady Yuhua smiled and said. The girl looked at her in confusion. Ian also looked at her and was stunned. This girl was Kyle Yin. She had also grown up a little. She did not have the same delicate attitude as before. She looked cold and elegant. Kyle Yin looked at them in confusion for a while. She suddenly said, "They are the young masters from the past." That's right. Lin Shuanghe still remembered Kyle Yin. He opened his fan and said with a smile, "Lady Kyle Yin, it has been so many years. It can be seen that everyone still misses you." Kyle Yin was also slightly excited. Day after day, in the cloud brothel, there was not much difference. The matter of making Tong Qiushi suffer that year was probably the most shocking experience they had ever had in their lives. Those young masters from Shuo Jing all came from noble families that they did not even dare to imagine. They did not look down on them like normal young masters and even said that they were friends. Occasionally, Kyle Yin would wonder if that was just a dream. Now that she saw old friends, Kyle Yin was so excited she could not speak. "We have guests. Go tell the kitchen to make a table of good food and wine." The Lady Yuhua smiled and said, "We will not leave until we are drunk." Kyle Yin responded and hurried to the kitchen. The girls at the side looked at them curiously. Lin Shuanghe looked around. He did not see Mother Ding and asked, "Where did Mother Ding go? Since she is an old friend, we should say hello to her." Hearing this, the Lady Yuhua's eyes dimmed. After a while, she said, "Mother Ding is no longer here." It turned out that 2 years after the Lady Yuhua went to Yangzhou with Wang Sheng, Mother Ding caught a cold and could not get out of bed. It was originally thought to be a minor illness, but it got worse and worse. In the end, it looked like she was about to die. Mother Ding did not have any children. In the cloud brothel, the one she loved the most was the Lady Yuhua. Kyle Yin wrote a letter to the Lady Yuhua. When the Lady Yuhua heard the news, she wanted to rush back to visit. But at that time, she was already married to Wang Sheng. Although the Wang family was a business, they did not lack rules. Not to mention that she had to rush back to Jinling. Even the cloud brothel did not allow her to have anything to do with it. The Lady Yuhua was trapped in Yangzhou and could not go out. She did not make it in time to see Mother Ding one last time. Mother Ding left with regrets. Before she left, she gave the cloud brothel to Kyle Yin. Now, Kyle Yin was the Mother Lien of the cloud brothel. When everyone heard this, they could not help but sigh. That shrewd and fierce woman with a soft heart was no longer here. Chapter 189. In entering Cloud's tower, it was not as lively as it was many years ago. Kyle Yin explained with a smile. After Mother Ding passed away, many girls in entering Cloud's tower left. Those who got married, and those who went home, went home. Kyle Yin did not find other girls to come in. There was no lack of brothels in the city. After Hua Yuxian went to Yangzhou, entering Cloud's tower's business was not as good as before. After the girls left, it was almost deserted. There's nothing bad about it. Usually, everyone will do some other rouge and face powder business to earn some money. It's enough to make do with the days. Kyle Yin said with a smile, "It's just that the sisters have nowhere else to go." Entering Cloud's tower was built by Mother. It's also the sisters' home. People should have a contented heart. It was very good for them to be like this now. Hua Yuxian invited everyone to sit down in the banquet hall. She first ordered people to prepare the food and wine. She asked Yin, He, and the others, "What are the young masters doing now?" A few years had passed. The youths had already grown into young people. They no longer had the youthful appearance of the past, but it could be seen that each of them had extraordinary experiences. "I am now a doctor." Lin Shuanghe lightly waved his folding fan and said seriously, "But I am only a female doctor." Thanks to the love of the world, I received the beautiful title of white-clothed divine hands. I'm very ashamed. Tian looked at Lin Shuanghe in surprise. Even though Lin Shuanghe usually spoke without thinking, but since they reunited, it was the first time he saw him showing off. It was probably in front of the people he admired when he was young. He always wanted to perform better. This one is even more impressive. He pointed at Yin He with his fan, guide Zhonglong Generals Yin. Kyle Yin was extremely surprised. The young masters are very impressive now. Yin He was inexplicably uncomfortable. He touched his ponytail and snorted. Not as impressive as General Feng Yin. General Feng Yin? Hua Yuxian was stunned. Following Yin He's gaze, she saw Xiao Ju calmly drinking tea. Young Master Xiao. Is the present General Feng Yin? Lin Shuanghe, yes. Hua Yuxian and Kyle Yin gasped at the same time. Back then, the group of youths had introduced themselves. Only this one and one of the masked youths had not spoken. At that time, everyone thought that it was either because their identities were too important to be revealed or because their identities were ordinary and not worth mentioning. However, Hua Yuxian felt that with the white-robed youth's outstanding looks and grace, he was the first type. Now that so many years had passed, no one would have expected him to be Do Wei's famous Right Army commander. This one is even more coincidental. Lin Shuanghe pointed at Yang Mingji and said jokingly, "Now, your Jinling city's governor is this Lord Yang." Yang Mingji moved his lips, but in the end, he didn't say anything. Hua Yuxian and Kyle Yin didn't know the story, but they were very happy. Looks like young Master Yang and Jinling City are really fated. What a coincidence. That's right, Lin Shuanghe snorted. What a coincidence. These two young masters look a little unfamiliar. Hua Yuxian looked at He Yin and Chu Zhao and said curiously, "This is their first time in Jinling," Lin Shuanghe explained. "This one's surname is Chu. You can call him Young Master Chu. This one is my good friend." At a young age, he was personally appointed as Muan Lang by His Majesty. He is also the subordinate of Military Governor Xiao. His name is He Yin. Young Master Chu, Young Master He. Hua Yuxian smiled and bowed. "Since this is your first time in Jinling City, you must try the food and wine of Entering Clouds restaurant." Lin Shuanghe's eyes lit up at these words. Miss Yuxian, is the chef of Entering Clouds restaurant the same person from back then? Hua Yuxian smiled and nodded. The food and wine were all made by the sisters in the restaurant. It is exactly the same as before. If the young masters like it, everyone will be very happy. He Yin still remembered that the food and wine of Entering Clouds restaurant was indeed superb. It was completely different from the restaurants in Shuajing. It was sweet and mellow, leaving a rich aftertaste. After she returned to Shuajing, the He family did not treat her badly. However, she had never tasted the same delicacies as an Entering Clouds restaurant. While they were exchanging greetings, it was not long before someone brought the food and wine to the long table. They were all home-cooked dishes: duck oil sesame seed cakes, plum blossom cakes, small wontons, red bean yuan xiao, pork fat dumplings. They were golden and fragrant. After arriving in Jinling City in the afternoon, He Yin had not eaten yet. He was already hungry. Seeing that everyone was only focused on talking, he endured it. In the end, he could not help but silently raise his chopsticks and eat the smoked fish silver thread noodles in front of him. The silver thread noodles were thin and soft. It melted in his mouth. Once it was steaming hot, all the cravings in his stomach came out. Seeing that no one was paying attention, He Yin picked up a crystal bun. Lin Shuanghe was talking to Hua Yuxian about the interesting things that happened in the past few years. Where did the youths from Xianchang restaurant go? While He Yin listened, he did not stop eating. His hands did not stop, and he grabbed a piece of floury bun. The food was naturally delicious, especially after the days in Rundu, where even dry biscuits were not enough to fill their stomachs. Even tofu pudding had become more precious than imperial cuisine. He Yin saw a plate of glutinous rice lotus root on the other end of the long table, and he was a little restless. Entering Clouds restaurant's glutinous rice lotus root was sweet and delicious. When he took a bite, it was as if he was biting down on a small bridge over flowing water, a clear breeze, and a bright moon in Jiangnan. She loved to eat this very much in the past. She still remembered the first time she came to entering Cloud's restaurant. That plate of glutinous rice lotus root was eaten clean by her. Therefore, she wanted to secretly pick up a piece to taste while everyone was talking. She wanted to see if it still tasted the same as before. Unfortunately, this plate of glutinous rice lotus root was unfortunately placed on a long table at the furthest end from her. Ian struggled to raise her chopsticks, trying to reach out with her long hands. Unfortunately, she was too far away. If she stood up to pick up the food, it would be too rude. After trying a few times, she had no choice but to give up. She sighed in her heart. In the next moment, she suddenly saw a piece of glutinous rice lotus root appear in the bowl in front of her. Ian was stunned. She saw Xiao Zhu put down his chopsticks, as if he was not the one who had just done this. He also did not look at Yin. He tilted his head and listened to Lin Shuanghe talk. It was as if doing this was just a casual action, and he did not take it to heart. Yan's ears turned slightly red. Before she could think of what to do next, she saw another piece of glutinous rice lotus root appear in her bowl. She was stunned. She subconsciously raised her head and met Chu Zhao's smiling face. The conversation at the table had stopped at some point. Yan's bowl suddenly had 2 more pieces of glutinous rice lotus root. Everyone at the table was staring at her. Their gazes were unclear. Yan's vision darkened. What was this? She just wanted to quietly pick up a snack to eat. How did she become the center of everyone's attention? Chu Zhao was smiling warmly as usual. Xiao Zhu was looking at her calmly. It made her feel as if she was sitting on pins and needles. Yan Yi frowned and looked at her for a while. He tapped the edge of the bowl with his chopsticks and said, I want to ask Mu and Lang, are you a relative of the royal family? Yan. No. If you are not, Yan He asked in disbelief. Why would the 2 of them, he pointed at Xiao Zhu with his chopsticks and then at Chu Zhao, act like they are fighting for attention? Yan was horrified when he heard the word fighting for attention. Before she could think of a reply, Lin Shuanghe had already laughed. He reached out his chopsticks and took away the piece of glutinous rice lotus root that Chu Zhao had given to Yan. He smiled and said, Ah, I love glutinous rice lotus root the most. 4th young master Chu, you know me best. It's so good. He took a bite. It's so sweet. Thank you, 4th young master Chu. When Chu Zhao saw this, he was slightly stunned. Then, he smiled and shook his head. He did not say anything. Yan then heaved a sigh of relief. Lin Shuanghe was a smart person. Fortunately, he managed to smooth things over. Otherwise, who knew what Xiao Zhu would think of her in her heart? However, Chu Zhao was also strange. Why did he suddenly put food in her bowl? If others saw this, they would inevitably find it strange. However, Hua Yuxian seemed to have noticed something. She smiled and clapped her hands. A young lady with a falling horse bun came forward with a small jar of wine. Young masters, you haven't at Cloud Restaurant's Bifong wine for a long time. She placed the jar of wine on the table. This jar of Bifong wine is the last one left this year. The young lady brought a few glass cups. Once the Bifong wine was poured into the cups, it was green and sparkling, and its fragrance assailed their nostrils. Ian still remembered that when he was young, the wine in Cloud Restaurant was sweet and refreshing. It made people slightly tipsy, but not too drunk. He was looking forward to it. When the young lady was about to pour the wine into the cup in front of Ian, Xiao Zhu glanced at her and suddenly said, Give her a bowl of milk. Ian was speechless. The young lady who poured the wine was also stunned. She looked at Xiao Zhu, not knowing what to do. Ian was confused and asked, Commander, why do I have to drink milk? This person was very calm and said, Milk makes you taller. And he touched his chin and looked at Yin with a scrutinizing gaze. He nodded and replied, Indeed, this young man is indeed a little short. Hua Yuxian smiled. Young Master Xiao, Cloud Restaurant doesn't have milk. The Bifong wine is a little strong. I'm afraid this young master can't drink it. Ding Xiang, go and get the rose dew. Not long after, a young lady brought the rose dew. Once the rose dew was poured into the cup, it was a light red color that was completely different from the Bifong wine. Ian took a sip and could not help but be stunned. This wine was exactly the same as the sweet wine she tasted in Cloud Restaurant that year. And he also snatched a cup and took a sip. He frowned and said, "What is this? It's sweet like fruit juice." "This is rose dew. It's usually for the young ladies to drink." And he did not feel anything. He mocked Yin and said, "Muan Lang, did you hear that? This is for the young ladies. Are you still a man?" The speaker did not mean it, but the listener took it seriously. Yin was really speechless. Just as she was thinking of how to reply without being rude, Lin Shuanghe helped her out. Lin Shuanghe waved his fan and said calmly, "Yin Nangguang, you came to Cloud Restaurant when you were young. Now you're here again. Does your wife know about this?" Yin's expression changed. Lady Qingxiu values etiquette the most. Sir Xia also keeps himself clean. I'm afraid no one in the Xia family has ever been to a brothel. You're the exception. I wonder what Lady Qingxiu will think of you if she knows about this. You don't talk nonsense. And he stuttered and retorted. However, this rebuttal was not imposing at all. Yin heard this and asked curiously, "Lady Qingxiu, is she General Yan's wife?" She's Xia Chengxiu's eldest legitimate daughter of the Imperial College's chancellor. She's tender and gentle. There are many families in Shuo capital that want to recruit a beauty for their young masters. However, Yin Nangguang beat them to it. Lin Shuanghe laughed and teased. It said that heroes have a weakness for beauties. I heard that our general's Yin is very obedient to his wife in the Fu. She doesn't allow him to drink. When he socializes with his colleagues, he only drinks tea. He's really the model of a good and virtuous husband. Yin's face turned red. Lin Shuang, don't talk nonsense here. Oh, isn't that the case? Then when I return to Shuo capital, I'll have to ask your wife properly, he said. And he did not dare to say anything else. If Lin Shuanghe really confronted Xia Qingxiu, wouldn't that be a slap to his face? His gaze swept across the people at the table. He decided to take a different approach. He raised his ponytail and slammed the wine cup in front of him on the table. He said loudly, "What's wrong with listening to my wife? A real man knows when to yield and when not. Moreover, at least I have a wife. Do any of you have one? Do you? Everyone here, may I ask which one of you has a wife now?" He really did not know how to respond to this. And he drank the wine in front of him in one gulp. He did not know if it was because the Bifong wine was particularly intoxicating, but he was already drunk. He first asked Lin Shuanghe, "You hang out with women every day. All the women in the world are your little sisters. May I ask if you have a wife now?" Lin Shuanghe, "No," as if he had won a battle. He asked Yang Mingji with satisfaction, "You have a gentle temperament and great talent. Everyone says that scholars do not lack beautiful partners. Do you have a wife?" Yang Mingji, "No." And he became more and more excited. He looked at Chu Zhao. "You have." He suddenly paused and said to himself, "Your wife has already been decided. Forget it next." He asked Yin, "Little guy, do you have a wife?" Yin, "She really did not have a wife." And he turned to Xiao Ju and looked at her proudly. "You are the number one in the Xianchang dojo. You have a handsome face and a good figure. No one can beat you in terms of both civil and martial arts." In those years, the door of the Xianchang dojo was almost broken by the girls. "But, may I ask if you have a wife?" Xiao Ju looked at him calmly. "I know you don't." And he single-handedly defeated everyone at the table. He probably thought that having a wife was a great honor, so he became even happier and prouder. He slammed the table, stood up, and said loudly, "It seems like all of you aren't that great. Do you know how amazing it is to have a wife? When you return home late at night, no one is waiting for you under the lamp, right? When you have a headache or fever, have you drunk the hot soup made by your wife? Don't even mention the clothes and boots that your wife personally sewed." Huh? He looked at everyone with disdain, as if he was the son of heaven looking down at the world. "Let's not talk about having a wife. I'm afraid that all of you have not even held a girl's hand in your life. You still have your first kiss." The more he spoke, the more ridiculous he became. He uncovered his face with his hands. He could not bear to look anymore. Yang Mingji could not help but tug at Yanni's robe. "Brother Nangguang, you are too much." When the girls who were pouring wine and playing the zither saw this, they could not help but laugh. They only felt that this arrogant young man had a kind of reckless cuteness at this moment. Kyle Yin smiled and said, "Young Master Yin, you are wrong. We are in the Cloud Dojo. If we're talking about girls, we do not lack anything. Young masters are so outstanding. If you really choose a girl in the dojo, everyone will be willing." Yin was so shocked that he almost dropped his cup. What was this? She was already recommending herself to be his pillow? No way. Absolutely not. Even though it was the Cloud Dojo, she had always treated the Cloud Dojo as a proper tavern. Just as she thought of this, she saw that the two beautiful girls beside Kyle Yin had already stuck to Xiao Ju. She really had good taste, picking the most outstanding one in one go. Hien's actions were faster than his thoughts. He instinctively shouted, "No way." The two girls who were about to persuade them to drink paused. The others at the table looked at her. Facing Xiao Ju's thoughtful gaze, Hien calmly said, "We came here in a group. We only drink, not talk about love." Hearing this, Hua Yuxian laughed even more happily. She poured herself a cup of Bifong wine and made a toast to Hien. "Young master is so cute. I toast you." Hien felt like a simple and honest scholar who had mistakenly entered the demon's cave. At this moment, he was really weak, pitiful, and helpless. After drinking a cup of rose dew, Kyle Yin smiled and said, "Young masters, do you still remember that many years ago at this place, everyone sang and danced together?" She looked at Yin He. "Young master," Yin even danced with a knife on the table. Yin He was stunned. "Why don't I remember?" It would have been better if he did not say this. Once he said it, Yin also remembered. At that time, after he helped Hua Yuxian chase away Tong Qiushi and scare Lu Rue away, everyone drank and celebrated at the Cloud Dojo. The girls in the Cloud Dojo played the zither and danced. It was very lively. Mama Ding took out the best Bifong wine to entertain them. And he drank the most and got drunk the fastest. After he was drunk, he took out a long knife and cut the lotus flower that was placed in the vase as a decoration in half. Everyone was shocked. Before they could stop him, they saw the exceptionally brightly dressed young man step on the table and start to dance with the knife. He danced and sang. "There's a tree in the east. A dragon is placed below. I will cut off the dragon's legs and chew on the dragon's flesh. I will make it so that it will not return in the morning and will not rest in the night." His friends went to pull him and pulled him off the table. Lin Shuanghe covered his mouth and smiled apologetically to the girls beside him. "This guy is drunk and spouting nonsense. Don't take it seriously. Sisters, please forget about it this time. Don't take it to heart." He turned around and scolded Yanhee. "What dragon slaying? How dare you spout such disgraceful words? If your father knows, he will bring you back tomorrow and break your legs." Unfortunately, Yanhee was already completely drunk at that time. At that time, everyone was drunk. Lin Shuanghe recalled the past and sighed. "Bifong wine is strong. Now that I think about it, other than Huaijin, Hirufei has the best alcohol tolerance and is the most sober." Hirufei? When Yanhee heard Hirufei, he felt uncomfortable. He scoffed. "I think he secretly poured the wine away. I don't believe you if you say he has a good alcohol tolerance. He must have done something to it." Ian lowered her eyes and looked at the dark red wine in the wine cup in front of her. She thought to herself, that time, she really wasn't drunk. Even when everyone was unconscious, she was very sober and returned to her room, wearing her clothes and lying down. There was no other reason. It was because everyone was drinking Bifong wine at that time. She was the only one who drank rose dew like today. Rose dew was just like what Yanhee said. It was sweet fruit dew. Although it was considered wine, its alcohol tolerance was definitely not as good as Bifong wine. Moreover, she was extra cautious that day, so she drank very little. When everyone was lying on the floor, she was still standing. But why was she the only one who got rose dew back then? Ian could not understand. A girl played the pipa. The sound was light and cheerful. When he was young, he liked to watch tragedies on stage and listen to sad songs. He always felt that the joy of the world was not as unforgettable as the sadness. As he grew older, he strived for perfection in everything. However, he knew that perfection was difficult. All he wanted was an instant. Yin covered her mouth and laughed. Not only that, the young masters also left various scrolls of calligraphy in Yunlu. However, after a long time, those scrolls of calligraphy were lost. Otherwise, being able to take it out for a look today would be a joyous occasion. What's so great about scrolls of calligraphy? And he did not think much of it. Just write another one. Our great scholar Yang is here. What can't he write, right? Yang Mingji was stunned. He did not say anything. Hua Yuxian seemed to be touched by his words. She said, "Please wait." Then, she got up and left. Everyone did not know what she was going to do. After a while, the girl hugged a long scroll and walked to the side of everyone. "Miss Yuxian, what is this?" Lin Shuanghe asked. Hua Yuxian looked at the scroll in her arms. She touched it gently. Her eyes were filled with nostalgia. She said gently, "I don't know if the young masters still remember that when we celebrated at Yunlu, young Master Wang was also there." Everyone fell silent. Young Master Wang was the cause of everything back then. He was also the end of everything. Ever since they reunited, everyone deliberately avoided talking about this person. They were afraid that Hua Yuxian would be sad, even though they did not know why. For a girl who was willing to sacrifice herself for her lover to break up so decisively, she must have encountered something very sad. When the young masters were drinking and talking, young Master Wang once drew on the side. He drew all of the young masters. As she spoke, she had the girl beside her help unroll the scroll. Later, I divorced young Master Wang. When I left the residence, I did not bring any luggage. I only had this. After she finished speaking, the scroll in her hand slowly unrolled. It fell into everyone's eyes. Wang Sheng did not need to be evaluated. His talent was not fake. The brush strokes captured the characteristics of each person very well. It was vivid and lifelike. On the scroll, lights intersected. Hu Qinsheng sang endlessly. The pretty girls' dresses were flipped up. Wine pots and cups were tilted at the long table. A young man with a high ponytail stepped on the table. He was in high spirits. He was practicing with his sword. There was a young man under the table. He held a folding fan in one hand and hurried to pull him up with the other. Yang Mingji beside him was not as steady as he was now. His expression was as gentle as ever. His sister beside him urged him to drink. He hurriedly waved his hand and refused. He also saw himself. The masked girl sat in the corner. Amidst the laughter and chatter, she seemed to have been forgotten. Her head was slightly tilted, as if she was following something. As far as her eyes could see, there was a white-robed youth sitting in the middle, casually drinking with his head lowered. Chapter 190. Still laughing. I'm here for an old friend after getting drunk tonight. And he held the wine jar lightly. His face was red and his words were slurred. Hua Yuxian smiled and said, "General Yin is drunk." A small jar of jade fragrant wine was emptied, and before the sound of the zither stopped, everyone was already drunk. Yin He and Lin Shuanghe were the most drunk. Lin Shuanghe raised his fan and fought bravely with Yin He. What's so great about a wife? How can someone who has a wife understand the value of freedom? What do you know? Yin He scolded him drunkenly. Are saying sour grapes because you can't eat them. Yang Mingji's alcohol tolerance was low. After drinking a little, he felt dizzy. He did not go crazy. He just sat there with restraint. No one knew what he was thinking. His gaze was a little unfocused. Yan's current alcohol tolerance was even worse than Yang Mingji's. Although the rose dew was sweet, it was still mixed with alcohol. After drinking a few cups, he felt sleepy. He didn't know when he felt that his head was heavy and his feet were light. He laid his head on the table and slept soundly. In the group, only Chu Zhao and Xiao Ju were sober. There's an empty room upstairs, Kyle Yin said. Why don't we send them upstairs to rest for a while? I'll ask the girls to make some hangover soup. When they wake up, they can drink it directly. Xiao Ju nodded. Not to mention other things. Just Yin He and Lin Shuanghe stayed alone. If they were put on the streets, something big might happen. Kyle Yin ordered people to help Lin Shuanghe and Yin He upstairs. Yang Mingji stood up shakily and tried to stay awake. He smiled and said, I don't need to. My carriage is still outside. I'll go back and rest." After saying that, he did not wait for a reply and walked out. Hua Yuxian was worried. This Xiao Ju, let him be. After Yang Mingji left, Chu Zhao looked at He Yin. Just as he was about to speak, Xiao Ju walked in front of He Yin and patted her back, calling her He Yin. He Yin was half asleep. Subconsciously, he slapped Xiao Ju's hand away and continued to sleep. Xiao Ju paused for a moment, bent down, and carried He Yin. The girl who was playing the guqin at the side was shocked. Her fingers moved, and the guqin made a strange sound. Hua Yuxian lowered her head and smiled. She said to Xiao Ju, "Young Master Xiao, please follow me." Seeing Xiao Ju take He Yin away, Kai Lian looked at Chu Zhao. "Young Master Chu." The young man smiled gently at her. "Sorry to trouble you." The room was in the corner of the upper floor. It was far away from Lin Shuanghe and Xiao Ju. At the end of the corridor was the attic. At a glance, it looked like a celestial mountain pavilion. Hua Yuxian stood at the door and smiled. No one has lived in this room before. It is cleaned every few days. "Young Master Xiao, please." Xiao Ju thanked her and carried He Yin into the room. Hua Yuxian left. Xiao Ju was tall, and He Yin was thin and short. It was easy to carry him. It did not feel like carrying a girl. Instead, it felt like carrying a cat. The bed in the room was very low. Perhaps it was because no one had lived here before, so it was cold and cheerless. Xiao Ju bent down and placed He Yin on the bed. Then, she half knelt on the ground and leaned against the head of the bed. She covered him with a blanket. The moonlight was hazy and the summer breeze was light. It blew in through the window and seemed to have lifted the alcohol. The young man lowered his head to look at the girl sleeping on the bed. Yin's words seemed to ring in his ears. "I'm afraid you haven't even held a girl's hand in your life. You still have your first kiss." He lowered his eyelashes and stared at the person on the bed. He whispered to himself, "That's not true." He Yin had almost suffocated to death in the water during the battle in Jiang. At that time, he was eager to save her and helped her vent his anger. That should be his first kiss, if it could be considered a kiss. However, this person did not seem to know. This made him a little unhappy. The young man bent his fingers as if he could not help but hit her as a punishment. However, he stopped when his fingers were about to touch He Yin's forehead. Then, the hitting turned into a gentle caress. Xiao Ju tucked the messy hair on her face behind her ears. Before they left, Lin Shuanghe's words came to his mind again. "Huaijin, oh Huaijin, if you like Mimi He, you should fight for her. Even if she likes Chu Xilan, you should know that it is impossible between her and Chu Xilan. Chu Xilan is also not a good match. With your appearance and family background, are you afraid that you can't compare to Chu Xilan? I don't know what Mimi He has encountered before, but as long as you treat her well and don't act so unreasonable, it should be easy for her to fall in love with you. Do you know that in Mimi He's heart, she has never thought that she should be favored?" The young man stared at the girl on the bed. His gaze gradually deepened. Even if Lin Shuanghe did not say it, he could feel it. However, this did not make sense. According to Luan Ying's information, he sway-doted on this daughter of his and would not make her belittle herself. In the martial arts arena, she was free and unrestrained in the light of swords. Compared to the humble and cautious in the ordinary world, there was a clear contrast. This was a contradictory person. However, this contradiction made her particularly eye-catching. Xiao Ju lowered his eyes to look at her. He reached out his hand as if he wanted to touch her cheek. Just as his fingers were about to touch her cheek, he suddenly woke up. He immediately retracted his hand and stood up. After a pause, he closed the window, closed the door, and went out again. The wind and moon outside were cool and refreshing. In the pavilion, it was like the old scenery. The young man walked slowly, his expression indifferent. He was dressed in a black brocade robe. The corner of his robe was embroidered with a beautiful and dangerous golden python. From afar, he drew a bright shadow in the night. On the long bench in the pavilion, someone had already arrived, leaning against the carved railing and drinking. Xiao Ju walked over. That person stood up and bowed to him. "Young Master Xiao." It was Hua Yuxian. The young masters have all been sent back to their rooms to rest. Hua Yuxian smiled mischievously Don't worry, young Master Xiao. The girls did not dare to enter their rooms. The servants are all serving them. This group of young masters were either rich or noble. They did not come to entering Cloud's tower to have fun. In Hua Yoxian's heart, she had never treated them as guests. She only thought of them as friends visiting and resting temporarily. Xiao Zhu did not say anything. Hua Yuxian held the railing in the pavilion with both hands and looked into the distance. The clear moon was in the sky, sprinkling silver frost everywhere. She said, I did not expect to meet the young masters again after so many years. I am really happy today. If Mama Ding was still here, she would be just as happy. Why did you divorce? Xiao Zhu asked. Hua Yuxian was stunned. The young man did not look at her. He only looked at the flickering lights on the street under the pavilion and asked casually. After a while, Hua Yuxian smiled. Why else? Because what I got was not what I wanted. She sighed. Young masters, I was the same as you in the past. I thought that as long as I chased away the evil people, we would be reunited. But I did not know that there are all kinds of difficulties in the world. The evil people are just one of the simplest. Back then, everyone helped Hua Yuxian chase away Tong Qiushi. After taking back the contract, Hua Yuxian followed Wang Sheng to Yangzhou. Even though Mama Ding and the sisters in entering Cloud's tower were very reluctant, they still hoped that Hua Yuxian could be together and live a happy life. Hua Yuxian and Wang Sheng did have a period of loving and harmonious days. That was before they came to Yangzhou. When they came to Yangzhou, all kinds of trials and tribulations followed. Although the Wang family was a merchant, they were also a famous rich family in Yangzhou. When they heard that their son had brought back a woman with no status, they were already unhappy. When they found out that this woman came from a brothel, they were even more against it. Only now did Hua Yuxian know that Wang Sheng did not tell Madame Wang and Master Wang about them from beginning to end. If their son married a woman from a brothel, they would become a joke in Yangzhou. Hua Yuxian knew that her status was low and did not want to make things difficult for Wang Sheng. Seeing his firm attitude, she was embarrassed and sad. She told Wang Sheng that they should separate. Wang Sheng was unwilling. How could he lose the happiness that he had fought so hard for in the hands of his parents? In anger, Wang Sheng went on a hunger strike in protest. He only told his parents that if they could not marry Hua Yuxian, he would leave and never return. He would never return to Yangzhou again. There were no parents in the world who could win against their children. Madame Wang loved her son, so in the end, she gave in and agreed to let Hua Yuxian marry into the family. But they could not tell others that Hua Yuxian was a distant relative's cousin who came to seek refuge. The neighbors of Yangzhou did not know the twists and turns and only thought it was true. So Hua Yuxian married into the Wang family. She thought that after the bitterness, there would be no more bitterness. She did not expect that this was just the beginning. Madame Wang was prejudiced against Hua Yuxian. Since she married into the family, she deliberately beat her. Every morning and evening, she set the rules. She was not allowed to leave the residence. She had to take care of everything. If there was anything wrong, she would say in a strange tone, "It's not your fault." After all, that was not all. After Madame Wang tortured Hua Yuxian, Wang Sheng would comfort his wife when they were alone and apologize to Hua Yuxian on behalf of his mother. Hua Yuxian also thought that time would reveal a person's heart. Maybe after a long time, Madame Wang would see her sincerity and her misunderstanding of her would be resolved. Although both of them knew that this was just self-deception. When Hua Yuxian was at entering Cloud Tower, she was famous for her beauty. After she married into Yangzhou, although she did not go out, she would still come out to receive people when the Wang family held a banquet. But anyone who saw her face was stunned by her beauty. After a while, the news spread in Yangzhou that the son of the Wang family of Shang dynasty married a wife. The new wife, young Mistress Wang, was extremely beautiful. The rumor spread more and more. There were even some ignorant and incompetent young masters in Yangzhou who sneaked into the residence just to see the legendary young Mistress Wang. Madame Wang was even angrier. She often scolded Hua Yuxian for being unfaithful and attracting flowers and butterflies. Hua Yuxian also felt wronged. She did not use her beauty to do anything. How could she be blamed for all the sins and absurdities caused by beauty? At the same time, Wang Sheng's attitude towards Hua Yuxian changed. After a long time, his infatuation with Hua Yuxian was gradually replaced by the annoyance caused by various trivial matters in the residence. When Wang Sheng heard Madame Wang's complaint, he had a thought. If only I hadn't married Hua Yuxian back then. He was shocked by this thought and forced himself not to think about it anymore. Unfortunately, if there was a first, there would be a second. This thought appeared more and more frequently. In the end, even his guilt was worn away. The last straw that broke the camel's back finally came. One day, a nephew of Madame Wang came to Yangzhou as a guest and temporarily stayed with the Wang family. This person was originally idle and ignorant. When he saw Hua Yuxian, he was shocked. Then, he learned from Madame Wang that Hua Yuxian was originally a prostitute who left her virginity. He immediately had bad intentions. Hua Yuxian's status in the Wang family was not high. The nephew wanted to take advantage of her and have a good time with her. Unfortunately, Hua Yuxian was not as degenerate as others thought. She sternly stopped this person's actions. The nephew was not satisfied. He actually said in front of Madame Wang that Hua Yuxian seduced him. Madame Wang was furious. She ordered Hua Yuxian to be locked in the woodshed as punishment. At that time, Hua Yuxian still had a glimmer of hope. As long as Wang Sheng believed her, maybe she could have lasted longer. Unfortunately, unconditional trust was rare in the world. Not only did Wang Sheng not stand on her side, he was also swayed by Madame Wang's words. Madame Wang said, she was originally a prostitute who slept with thousands of men. How could she be at ease with you at home? As long as she has the chance, she will seduce men. My son, do you want to be proud of being cuckolded? Do you want our Wang family to become a joke in Yangzhou? Divorce her. Wang Sheng wrote the divorce letter. Hua Yuxian looked at the man she once loved deeply. She said coldly, if you want to divorce your wife, I dare to tell everyone in Yangzhou that I came from Jinling City's Yunlu. Your Wang family took a prostitute as a bride. You. Wang Sheng was furious. Do you want to pester me? You think too much, young Master Wang. Hua Yuxian slightly curled her lips, but in her eyes, there was no longer the affection of the past. What I mean is divorce. The Wang family valued their reputation the most. They also wanted to get rid of Hua Yuxian this stain. The divorce went smoothly. On the other hand, when Wang Sheng got the divorce letter and Hua Yuxian left, he thought of the past. He was reluctant to part with her and tried to persuade her to stay. The flower fairy looked at him and said, young Master Wang, when I married you back then, I hoped that you could fulfill my childhood wish and accompany me to all the famous mountains and rivers. However, ever since I married you, I have never stepped out of the Wang family. Now that the grudges are settled, young Master Wang is not a good person. Only this farewell. I hope we will never meet again. She left especially calmly. When she left Yunlu that year, Madame Ding once told her, Yuxian, have you ever seen a moth flying into a flame? What good ending. She was young at that time. Hearing this, she just smiled and replied, even if there's a moment of light and warmth, a moment is enough. The woman gently touched the corner of her eyes. She was still beautiful, but not like before, because the young and fearless girl never thought that this love was really so short. So much so that the struggle and persistence in the past seemed particularly ridiculous. Let's not talk about me. Hua Yuxian smiled and changed the topic. Young master, is the girl beside you the little girl from that year? When she said this, Xiao Ju suddenly looked up. What did you say? Chapter 191. Hua Yuxian paused and said, young master, isn't he a girl? Not this, Xiao Ju frowned, her beautiful eyes sharpening. You mean the girl from that year? Hua Yuxian nodded, slightly confused. That masked girl, doesn't young Master Xiao know? Xiao Ju's gaze became incredulous. Girl. Young Master Xiao doesn't know even now? Hua Yuxian was also surprised. Back then, young Master Xiao had specially asked someone to change the little girl's Bifong wine to rose dew. I thought young Master already knew about it. She seemed to recall something, and her eyes curved. Because of that, I deliberately teased her, making her blush. It was very interesting. Xiao Ju's expression was shocked, muttering, "I didn't know." At that time, he could smell the sweet and mellow sweetness of the Bifong wine. It was very intoxicating. He Rufei had just been beaten up in the village and had just been treated with medicine. If he wanted to drink wine, it was better to drink something lighter. Thus, he ordered Hua Yuxian to change it to sweet rose dew. But Xiao Ju did not expect Hua Yuxian to tell her now. He Rufei was a girl? Are you sure? Xiao Ju looked at the girl in front of her. He is a girl. When I was at Entering Cloud's brothel, occasionally there would be girls from rich families who would dress up as men and come here to play. Mother told us that if we met such girls, we should not expose them, let them play, and just protect them. So if they were really girls dressed as men, I would be able to tell at a glance. That masked young master was actually very good at dressing up as a man. There were no signs of earrings or hairpins. His actions were no different from a normal man. It's just that this servant always felt that something was wrong. So I found an excuse to sit beside her. She laughed. She was clearly wrapped around her chest and was extremely nervous. This servant just teased her a little, and she became extremely flustered. But that mask was quite good at scaring people. If it was someone else, they would not be able to tell. And the young masters did not have much contact with girls at that time. It is natural that they would not be able to tell at a glance that she is a girl. Xiao Ju was speechless. He and He Rufei had not been classmates for a long time, only a year or so. But all these years, he had never doubted that He Rufei was not a man. It was hard to believe that Hua Yuxian would suddenly say something like this. However, he knew very well that Hua Yuxian was not one to speak without thinking. Although she had said it in a euphemistic manner, she must have said it because she was certain. From the looks of it, the Missy today is not the same person as the young master back then. Hua Yuxian looked at Xiao Ju curiously. I thought that the way young master Xiao took care of that lady was the same as back then. I thought it was the same person. Xiao Ju's mind was in a mess. She shook her head and said, "She's not. Young Master Chu seems to be interested in Miss He as well." Hua Yuxian rested her chin on her hand. This action made her look like a young girl. "However, I can tell that she likes you." Xiao Ju raised his eyes to look at her. "Young Master probably does not know." Hua Yuxian laughed lightly. At the table today, she spent more time looking at you than she did looking at young Master Chu. Also, when Kyle Yin called someone to persuade them to drink, Missy was so nervous that she almost dropped the cup. If young master likes Miss He, you have to be more proactive. If a flower is beautiful enough, more than one person will want to pluck it. After saying this, she straightened her body and picked up the wine pot on the table in the pavilion. She said, "I am also drunk. I will go back to my room to rest. Young master, please stay here and think about it slowly. Once you understand, everything will be clear tomorrow." She bowed to Xiao Ju flirtatiously and said, "Goodbye." Hua Yuxian disappeared into the depths of the corridor. Xiao Ju sat in the pavilion and looked at the lantern on the table. After talking for so long, until now he was still shocked by one thing. He Rufei was actually a woman? No one had seen He Rufei's face under the mask. Was He Rufei a woman from the beginning? Or was the He Rufei that followed them to Jinling a woman? Xiao Ju pondered for a moment and concluded that the He Rufei that followed them to Jinling was not replaced. It was the He Rufei that he met in the Xianchang restaurant. In other words, the He Rufei in the Xianchang restaurant, the He Rufei in front of the world, was a woman. For a moment, all the strange behaviors of He Rufei in the past suddenly became reasonable. Why did he always wear a mask that covered his entire face, not even taking it off when he was sleeping? Why did the servants of the He family keep a distance from He Rufei and never serve him personally? Why did no one ever bathe in the hot spring with He Rufei? Why was He Rufei not strong, short, and much thinner than the average teenager? Because He Rufei was a woman. However, the He Rufei that took off the mask in front of Emperor Wen Xuan was clearly a real man. The previous battle in Hua Yuan appeared in front of his eyes again. He Rufei, who was brave and good at fighting, was defeated in the battle in Hua Yuan. His trusted aides were all killed in battle. How similar was this to the battle in Mingshui? In the battle in Mingshui, they were silenced because Xiao Zhongwu's deputy generals knew the truth of the main general's murder. In the battle in Huayuan, why did they have to silence them? Did those trusted aides who were killed in battle discover some great secret? After thinking about it, the biggest secret was nothing more than the General Fei Hong that followed him to the battlefield in the past, and the General Fei Hong that was personally conferred in front of His Majesty were not the same person at all. In fact, they were far from each other. Fei Nu, in the darkness, Fei Nu walked out. He couldn't hide the surprise in his heart. That year, Fei Nu accompanied Xiao Zhu to Jinling. He was also one of the imperial bodyguards. Naturally, he also knew that the young man wearing the mask was He Rufei. Now that so much time had passed, how could he not be surprised when he found out that General Fei Hong, who was feared by the world, was actually a woman? Quickly informed Luaning to thoroughly investigate everything about the He family, starting from He Rufei's birth. In addition, find out if there are any soldiers in the Fuyue army who fought alongside He Rufei and secretly protect their safety. He stood up. I'm afraid that very soon, someone will want to silence them. The sun shone on his face, making his hair fluffy. Ian reached out to block the dazzling sunlight outside and slowly opened his eyes. In the room, a girl was putting a basket of porridge on the table. She smiled and said, "Little Gongzi, you're awake? Did I fall asleep?" Ian asked. Last night, after drinking a few cups of rose dew, he was extremely sleepy. He didn't know when he fell asleep. His current alcohol tolerance couldn't be compared to his previous life. One had to know that Yin, who was still young, couldn't even drink a few cups. Little Gongzi went to bed early. It was young Master Xiao who sent you back to your room. The girl pursed her lips and smiled. Young Master Lin and young Master Yin are already awake. They've already eaten and are waiting downstairs. Little Gongzi, after eating breakfast and washing up, you can go downstairs. She didn't have any intention of serving He Yin. After placing the food on the table, she left. It should be Xiao Ju's idea. Now that she was a girl, only Yin He and Yang Mingji didn't know. But at least for now, the fewer people who knew, the better. He ate and tidied up before going downstairs. As soon as he went downstairs, he heard Yin He and Lin Shuanghe arguing. Yin He said, "Impossible. You got drunk first yesterday. Come on, Yin Nangguang. I saw that you drank too much. How could I get drunk first? Don't deny it. If you don't believe me, you can ask Huaijin. Huaijin, was I drunk first or was he drunk first?" Without waiting for Xiao Ju to answer, Yin He quickly said, "Why are you asking him? He's your friend. Of course, he's on your side. Anyway, you got drunk first." Yin Nangguang, does your wife know that you're acting so shamelessly? Yin went downstairs and greeted them. He looked at Xiao Ju, who was sitting in front of the window. He was looking out of the window. No one knew what he was thinking. He didn't even notice Yin coming downstairs. This was strange. Yin walked to Lin Shuanghe and asked, "What's wrong with Commander-in-Chief? You seem to have a lot on your mind." Lin Shuanghe shrugged. "Who knows? He's been like this since early morning. Maybe he's thinking about what will happen after he returns to Shuajing." He said it simply, but Yin was a little worried. Could it be that she said something crazy when she was drunk last night? He really didn't have any recollection of it. But Yin looked around. Why don't I see official Yang and fourth young Master Chu? It seems that they didn't stay in Ruyun Lu last night. Yang Mingji doesn't like these places. As for Chu's island, Lin Shuanghe deliberately looked at Yin and said slowly, "If he stayed in Ruyun Lu last night, Su Pingting will skin him alive when he returns to Shuajing. That's not all. I'm afraid that the entire Ruyun Lu will suffer." So he did a good deed. While they were talking, Yin had already walked to Xiao Ju's side and slammed the table. "Come back to your senses." Xiao Ju looked up. "Didn't you say that you were going to find Yang Mingji in the morning? Hurry." Yin He was very anxious. "If you have something to say it quickly. Don't delay our return to Shuajing." He rubbed his hands. "I told Qingxiu the time of our return to Shuajing, not even a day later." Ever since he knew that Yin He was a model husband, he didn't hide it anymore. 8 out of 10 sentences were about his wife. Xiao Ju was too lazy to pay attention to his seemingly careless showing off. She stood up and said to everyone, "Let's go." When they got on the carriage, Hien finally had a chance to ask the question he was most concerned about. "Governor, Generals Yin, why are we going to find official Yang?" Probably after everyone drank together last night. Yin classified Yin as one of their own camp. He didn't hide anything and said, "I don't know. I only said that it has something to do with Yudo. Anyway, we'll know when we get there." Speaking of Yudo, his expression became somewhat serious. "I don't know what the situation is like in Shuajing. The Yangfu wasn't close to entering Cloud's tower, but wasn't far either." After a few minutes, the carriage stopped in front of the Yangfu. Yang Mingji was the governor of Jinling, but his residence was very simple. At first glance, it didn't look any different from a normal residence. Hien still remembered that when Lu Rue was the governor of Jinling, he heard his friends say that the residence was luxuriously renovated. It was so luxurious that the youths who went to steal contracts almost got lost in the garden. Yang Mingji wasn't greedy for riches and honor. At least, his original intentions hadn't changed. Then, why did he say such hurtful words to his good friend that year? Hien pondered in his heart as he followed everyone into the main door. There weren't many servants in Yang Mingji's residence. It looked like the residence of a normal scholar in Jinling. The garden wasn't taken care of. Some bamboo was randomly planted. When they reached the main hall, there were very few decorations. The most eye-catching things were the various landscape paintings hanging on the wall. Hien went over to take a look. There weren't any famous paintings. They were all written by Yang Mingji himself. There was also a piece of paper and ink on the table. It hadn't been framed yet. 10 years of study, Yanhua is still beautiful. Don't chase the world, fighting cock, eastern suburbs. Riches and honor are like floating clouds. Gold and jade aren't treasures. Once the pelicans roar, the frost is strong grass. Ambition is lost, and tears are stained with hugs. Hien was startled. Why did Yang Mingji write this? Who was he satirizing? Who was he crying for? Before he could think of a reason, he heard a person come out and say, "You're here." It was Yang Mingji. He didn't wear his official robe today. He only wore his daily clothes. It looked even more difficult to associate him with the governor of Jinling. Everyone found a seat and sat down. Yang Mingji ordered a servant to pour tea. "Niao niao." And he held the teacup and looked up at Yang Mingji. He asked, "If you have something to say, just say it. There are no outsiders here. You asked someone to tell us that you have something important to tell us. What is it?" Yang Mingji was silent for a moment. He then said, "I heard that you came from the Rundu." "What? My name has reached your ears?" Yin he said proudly. "Indeed, we came from the Rundu. If I didn't arrive with reinforcements, the people in the Rundu would have been killed by the Yudo. You don't know how critical the situation was at that time. When we arrived, the Rundu city's army had already started to eat people." Speaking up to here, a trace of disgust flashed in Yanhee's eyes. How dare they? Once Yanhee started talking about his contributions, he would not stop talking. Yang Mingji obviously didn't want to listen to him show off. He interrupted him. "Military Governor Xiao, you were there during the Battle of Jiang and the Battle of the Rundu. You interacted with the Yudo. What do you think of them?" Xiao Ju, nothing much. His expression was calm. Hien quickly explained, "I happened to be there during the Battle of Jiang and the Battle of the Rundu. Official Yang, those Yudo were very cruel. They came prepared. Their methods were cunning. They massacred the citizens of Dowei outside the Rundu. They were very despicable." Yang Mingji looked at her and asked, "Do they have intentions to invade Dowei's territory?" Hien, "It's obvious." Yang Mingji nodded. "I think so too. Everyone in the world thinks so. Lin Shuang has said, isn't that the case? The imperial court doesn't think so." Everyone was stunned and looked at Yang Mingji. Yang Mingji frowned. His expression was very solemn. "I received news that the Yudo emissaries are on their way to Shuo capital. The two factions in the imperial court are arguing endlessly. His Majesty wants to make peace." "He's crazy." Before Yang Mingji could finish, Yanni shouted, "They're already at our doorstep. How can we make peace?" Do they think that Buddha has descended to save all living beings? Yang Mingji shook his head. Not only that, they propose to set up a market in Dawei's territory so that the two countries can exchange trade. Chapter 192. The moment he said this, no one in the room said anything. Even Lin Shuanghe, who had never cared about the affairs of the state, looked puzzled when he heard this. After all, the enemy had led their troops to invade and suffer defeat, yet the emperor was still thinking for them. It sounded like a joke. Right now, in the imperial court, the crown prince, Prime Minister Su, and the civil officials are mostly in favor of peace. The generals have yet to express their opinions. Yang Mingji looked at Xiao Ju. I want to ask you, what are you going to do? Do you even need to ask? Yanni said, we are not weak. If someone slaps us in the face, why should we let them slap us in the face? I will chase the Yudo back home and make sure they don't dare to step into Dawei in the future. Then I can rest assured. Yang Mingji said in a low voice, it's just that. I don't know if your words can change the emperor's mind. After talking about the recent movements of the Yudo, everyone got up and left their seats. Because of the news sent by Yang Mingji, Xiao Ju and the others didn't plan to stay in Jinling for another 2 days. Since the Yudo emissary was already on his way to Shuajing, they had to hurry back to Shuajing to meet the emperor. Right now, Shuajing was mostly under Prime Minister Su. Even if they weren't under Prime Minister Su, they were still suppressed and didn't dare to speak. If they really agreed to the Yudo's request for peace and even set up a battlefield in Dawei, it would only be harmful to the people of Dawei. After regrouping the troops, everyone had lunch and was about to set off. Xiao Ju and He Yin rode at the front with the troops. He Yin and Lin Shuanghe sat in a carriage. Chu Zhao and Ying Xiang's carriage was at the back. Between the two horses riding side by side, Xiao Ju opened his mouth and said, have you seen He Rufei after the Xianchang mansion? And he paused and said, I'm not familiar with him. I've only seen him a few times after he was made a general, but I only saw him from afar. However, ever since he was made a general, other than the battle in Huayuan, have you ever seen him lead an army? I think he's been living a comfortable life for too long. That's why he's so weak in the battle of Huayuan. Why are you asking him? You want to catch up with him? Xiao Ju did not answer his question. She continued to ask, He Rufei that you met later, what was the difference between him and the past? What's the difference? And he frowned. How would I know? I wasn't following him the whole time. However, he had grown a little over the years and was a little taller than before. Before I went to Ling County, I heard that the He family had the intention to marry a wife for him. Xiao Huaijin. He glanced at his companion beside him. If He Rufei marries a wife before you, you won't lose to He Rufei, right? Xiao Ju couldn't be bothered to pay attention to him and rode off. He Yin, who was in the horse carriage, did not know that Xiao Ju and Yin he had such a conversation. The closer she got to Shuajing, the heavier her worries became. Lin Shuanghe also noticed it. He sat opposite her and asked, Younger sister He, what's wrong with you? When I saw you in the Rundu, I felt that something was wrong. It was as if you had something on your mind. You didn't even talk much these days. What kind of trouble did you encounter? If you have any difficulties, just tell me. I'll help you think of a solution. He Yin smiled bitterly. She was only thinking about how to expose He Rufei when she returned to Shuajing. Now that she had become Muan Lang, her identity was closer to the He family and Su family than her previous identity as the military officer's daughter. However, the official position of Muan Lang had many restrictions. He Rufei's trusted aides who could prove the truth were all killed by He Rufei. It was difficult to get a witness, so she could only start from another place. The Su family was the one who kept this secret. If she could start from a Su family, the Su family would pull the He family out to protect themselves. They would panic. An alliance formed for benefits would not be stable. He Yin was deep in thought when Lin Shuanghe suddenly stretched out his hand in front of her. Younger sister He Yin looked at him and said, I'm thinking about what I should do when I return to the capital. She counted with her fingers. Brother Lin, you know that I escaped from Shuajing and got involved in a lawsuit. Everyone in the neighborhood knows that I'm a woman. Now is not the time to swagger back. I'm afraid that I can only see my father and brother secretly. She thought for a moment. When His Majesty conferred the title, I left some money. It's enough to rent a small house, but it's inconvenient for me to show my face. If Brother Lin has a lot of connections, can you help me arrange it? I'll naturally give you the money without missing a single cent. Lin Shuanghe heard her words and slapped his thigh. I thought it was some trouble. It's a small matter. Leave it to me. He lifted the curtain of the carriage and shouted, Huaijin, Huaijin. Xiao Ju paused and slowed down his pace. He rode his horse back to the front of the carriage and asked, What's the matter? Lin Shuanghe smiled at him. I just promised Brother He that when I return to Shuajing, I'll rent a house for him in the city. But you also know that renting a house is not something that can be done overnight. Before we find a good residence, can Brother He stay in your residence? Xiao family's courtyard is big and spacious. It shouldn't be difficult to give a room to Brother He, right? He had never thought that Lin Shuanghe would say this. He hurriedly said, Brother Lin, that's not what you said just now. Governor, it's okay. I'll just find an outside. Staying in it costs more money. Lin Shuanghe said, You're still so young. How can you be so extravagant? Don't you know the benefits of being thrifty? Listen to me and stay in Huaijin's house. Huaijin, can you give me a definite answer? Xiao Ju glanced at He Yan's body stiffened. He saw Xiao Ju lightly nod his head. Okay. He after saying this, Xiao Ju rode his horse forward. Lin Shuanghe lowered the curtain of the carriage and looked at He proudly. See, now isn't it the best of both worlds? He leaned weakly against the carriage. He thought to himself, this is really an ill-fated relationship. Not only did they not keep their distance, but they were getting closer and closer. They were even living in Xiao Ju's house. Although living in Xiao Ju's house did have its benefits. If she followed Xiao Ju on various occasions, she might have a higher chance of meeting Su Zhiheng and He Rufei. She might even be able to find some useful clues. She suppressed the almost imperceptible joy in her heart and coughed lightly. In her heart, she secretly said to herself, It must be like this. In the Shuo capital, the Su family study room. A servant was guarding the door. Someone was talking inside. Two people were sitting in front of a small table. One of them was wearing a green robe and looked refined. The other was also a handsome young master. However, there was a reserved and deep aura between his eyebrows. The two of them were looking at the chessboard in front of them. The black and white pieces on the chessboard were scattered all over. It looked like a chaotic game. These two people, one of them was the eldest son of the Su family, the current Hamlin Academy scholar Su Zhiheng. The other person was He Rufei, who had just returned to the capital not long ago. He had defeated Yudo at Huayuan. Second young master Xiao is about to return to the capital. Su Zhiheng placed down a piece. After Gai Zhonglong and second young master Xiao return to the capital, they will definitely speak to His Majesty and advocate that Yudo be chased out of the way. He Rufei didn't speak. He silently looked at the chessboard. Brother He, are you still thinking about the Huayuan incident? Su Zhiheng smiled faintly. Those who know are no longer in this world. Brother He, don't worry. There won't be anyone else in this world who knows this secret. Even if there are people who know, they won't have any evidence. They won't be able to turn the tables. He Rufei glanced at him. Young master, Su seems to be too relaxed. Don't forget, when you were studying at Xianchang Academy, Xiao Huaijin, Yin Nangguang, and even Lin Shuanghe all saw He Rufei. So what? Su Zhiheng said disapprovingly. When He Rufei was young, he wasn't very close to his classmates. If he was really close, his classmates wouldn't have been able to discover his identity for so many years. I think Brother He is worrying too much. Even if Xiao Huaijin and Yin Nangguang return to Shuajing, you won't have much interaction with them. He Rufei placed a piece down. I hope so. In his heart, he suddenly remembered the nightmare he had last night. In his dream, he was leading troops to fight on the battlefield in Huayuan. Suddenly, a sword stabbed him from behind. He couldn't dodge in time and was stabbed in the heart. When he fell, he saw someone walk in front of him and squat down. It was a young man wearing a mask and armor. When he slowly reached out and took off his mask. A familiar, beautiful, and heroic face was revealed. Hien smiled at him and softly said, "Big brother." Hirufei suddenly woke up. He touched his forehead and found that it was covered in cold sweat. Hien had clearly been dead for more than a year. This name had gradually been forgotten by the world. Or it could be said that she had never been remembered by the world. The days had passed peacefully for so long, but at this juncture, she would still appear in his dreams and cause him to be unable to sleep at night. "That concubine of yours," he said. Su Jiheng's face turned cold. "She's already dead." Hien had died at the hands of Iwanru. A month after Hien's death, he had casually found an excuse to have Iwanru killed. The corpse had been dragged to the mass grave. He was afraid that it had already been eaten by wolves and wild dogs. In the future, if by any chance they found out something, they could push all the blame onto Iwanru. All the thugs, servants, and maids who had been involved that day were dealt with. The entire Su family, inside and outside, had been changed. Hien had been a general when he was alive. After his death, he had used so many servants to accompany her. This could be considered to have completed the friendship between husband and wife. "Very good," Hirufei said coldly. "Don't make any mistakes." Just as they were talking, someone knocked on the door of the study. Su Jiheng got up to open the door. A young woman walked in. This woman was also in the prime of her youth. If one looked carefully, there were some similarities between her eyebrows and Hien's. It was just that she didn't have the heroic spirit and determination of a female general on the battlefield. Instead, she was more beautiful and sweet, like the delicate spring flowers in the capital. Her every movement was spoiled and lovable. This was Su Jiheng's new wife, the current Su eldest madam. He Xining was Yuanqing's second legitimate daughter, Hirufei's cousin, and Hien's biological sister. Eldest brother, husband, Xining had the kitchen make some snacks while you were talking inside. Xining smiled as she placed a few plates of shortbread on the small table. She said that if you're tired, you can fill your stomach. You've worked hard. Su Jiheng spoke warmly and pulled her to sit beside him. "Sit down too." Xining obeyed and sat down beside Su Jiheng. She looked at Hirufei and smiled. "Eldest brother, you haven't come to the Su family for a while. How are father and mother?" Hirufei nodded slightly. "They're fine. You don't have to worry." Xining didn't know what to say. She and this cousin of hers weren't very close in the past. Hirufei's temperament was particularly unsociable when he was young, and he often wore a mask. The He family all knew that Hirufei wore a mask because he was ugly. Xining saw Hirufei hiding alone in the corner during the He family's banquets every day. Xining pitied him, but when she tried to get close to him a few times, Hirufei would avoid her as if she was the plague. After a while, Xining's feelings faded. Later, Hirufei betrayed the He family and joined the army. He actually managed to earn some military merits. All of the He family's unmarried young ladies also rose in status, including Xining's older sister, the He family's second branch, who was notoriously sickly. When Hien returned to the He family, Xining was already very old. At that time, because of Hirufei, the He family arranged a good marriage for Hien. The Su family's eldest son, Su Jiheng, was already a Hamlin scholar at a young age. He was also handsome and refined. Xining had once been jealous of this older sister of his. She was clearly in poor health and hadn't returned to the capital for many years. Even the noble ladies in the capital didn't know of her existence. But as soon as she came back, she was able to become the Su family's young mistress. What kind of blessing was this? But this bit of jealousy disappeared after Hien died. Xining felt sad for Hien. Even though she didn't have any feelings for this older sister of hers, blood was still thicker than water. She had just found a good marriage and was about to enjoy life, but her life was so short. What was strange was that after Hien died, the He family and Su family held a large funeral for her. The entire Shuo capital knew that the He family valued this second branch's daughter, but only Xining knew that in the He family, other than her own mother, everyone, including her own father, didn't seem as sad as others thought. After the funeral, other than occasionally wiping away a few drops of tears when Hien was mentioned in public, normally No one in the residence would even mention He Yin. It was as if the He family's second branch's D daughter had never existed. He Xining felt that something wasn't right, but before she could figure out why her family was so cold to her older sister, He Yuanqing actually decided on her marriage with Su Zhiheng and wanted her to be Su Zhiheng's second wife. Even though Su Zhiheng was a widower, he was still a good candidate for a husband in the hearts of others in the Shuo capital. Especially after He Yin died, the affection he showed made many young ladies admire him. Even though He Xining knew that Su Zhiheng was outstanding, she was extremely unwilling to marry into the Su family. Older sisters serving the same husband wasn't a new thing in the Shuo capital. But most of the time, the D daughter would be the main wife and the Shu daughter would be the concubine, taking care of each other. How could two D daughters marry the same person one after the other? It wasn't like the He family's young ladies couldn't get married. She was so young and beautiful, and her family background was good. Wouldn't it be better to find a young master of equal social status to be the main wife than to be the Su family's young mistress? But on this matter, He Yuan Liang, who had always doted on her, was unexpectedly very firm. And her mother, second Madam He, wanted to fight for her, but she was powerless. In the He family, women's words didn't count. Just like that, He Xining unwillingly married into the Su family. After marrying into the Su family, He Xining discovered that Su Zhiheng was more considerate and gentle than she had imagined. It was very easy to fall for a handsome and outstanding husband who took care of her in everything. Moreover, Su Zhiheng was indeed very popular with women. The regret and longing he occasionally showed for his deceased wife made people think that this person was someone who valued friendship and was worthy of being entrusted with the rest of their lives. After He Xining married into the Su family, He Rufei, her older cousin, would come to see her from time to time. He Xining was a bit overwhelmed by the favor. She should be the one who married the best out of all the young ladies of the He family. She enjoyed all the blessings that He Yin didn't enjoy. It was just that sometimes it felt unreal. That's right, eldest brother, husband, He Xining said, previously, every autumn, I would go up the mountain with Mother to the temple to burn incense and pray for blessings. Although I won't be at home this year, I still want to go with Mother. Su Zhiheng smiled and said, naturally, if I don't have anything to do that day, I'll go with you. He Xining happily said, that's really great. After sitting for a while, she got up and left the room, leaving Su Zhiheng and He Rufei to talk inside. After leaving the room, her personal maid, Xiao Lu, asked, young mistress, are we going back to the courtyard? He Xining shook her head. Let's go. In the courtyard, the summer pond was lush and green, and the pond water was as calm as a mirror. The He family's pond was always planted with many lotus flowers. At this time of the year, a faint fragrance wafted through the air. However, the Su family's pond didn't even have a rockery, let alone lotus flowers. Su Zhiheng was an elegant person. Only this pond was like a pool of stagnant water. After looking at it for a long time, it felt like a bottomless abyss that could pull people down at any time. Her older sister, He Yin, had lost her footing and drowned here. Perhaps it was because of this, or perhaps it was because of their blood relationship. But every time she walked here, she always felt that the wind was particularly cold and the water was especially cold. It made her heart feel uncomfortable. He Xining looked away. The dowry maid, Xiao Lu, asked her, young mistress, when you were in the room earlier, why didn't you stay a little longer? The longer you stayed, the better the Su family would treat you. He Xining also understood that the Su family's master and madam were so lenient to her, their daughter-in-law, most likely because of He Rufei. The closer she was to this General Fei Hong, brother and sister, the more the Su family didn't dare to treat her poorly. He Xining shook her head and laughed self-deprecatingly. Big brother originally didn't come to see me. It didn't matter how long I stayed in there. If there was someone who knew He Yin here, they would discover that on this soft and sweet face, there was a clear and bright look in her eyes. It was very similar to the previous young Mistress Su. She was just deceiving herself. In less than a month, they traveled from Jinling to Shuajing. Along the way, They rested well and hurried along the way. Finally, they arrived in front of the city gates before the beginning of autumn. In front of Shuajing's gates, the guards who had received the news had already opened the gates. The soldiers and horses entered the city, and the common people along the street all pointed at the troops and whispered. Yin and Lin Shuanghe hid in the carriage and didn't accept these comments. Lin Shuanghe's heart itched unbearably. He said to Yin, "If I knew it would be so impressive, I would have asked Huijin to give me a horse. If I sat on the horse, the girls would be able to see my face more clearly." "Even if you don't sit on the horse, Brother Lin, the girls in Shuajing will be able to see your face very clearly." Yin comforted him. "That's true." Lin Shuanghe heard her say this and thought about it carefully. He didn't feel conflicted anymore. Yin himself didn't think too much about the matter of being in the limelight. That year, when she returned to the capital with the victorious Fuyue army, it was also as lively as today. However, at that time, she was wearing a mask and was extremely uncomfortable. She was afraid that people would find out. The next day, after returning to the He family, the real He Rufei accepted all the glory and burdens in her place. She had never used her own face to face all the things that General Fei Hong brought to her. The carriage stopped with a squeak, and Yenny's voice came from outside. "How long are you guys going to sit inside? We're almost at the entrance of the palace." Yin was startled and dismounted with Lin Shuanghe. Chu Zhao had already parted ways with their carriage when he entered the city. He only needed a servant to inform him. Yin didn't mind. They weren't on the same side, so it was natural for them to split up. It couldn't be that if she moved into the Xiaofu, Chu Zhao would also move into the Xiaofu, right? "Commander-in-Chief, we are going—" Yin asked. "I want to enter the palace." Xiao Ju glanced at her. "You wait in the carriage first." "Wait." Yin looked at her in confusion. "Why don't you bring this fellow with you?" "When entering the palace, one must meet the emperor. Take this opportunity to let the emperor get to know this fellow. It will be beneficial for his career in the future. Since you are someone superior, you should find every opportunity to praise your subordinate. Or are you afraid that Yin will be more successful than you in the future, so you deliberately don't let him stand out?" Yin was sincerely convinced by Yanhe. No matter how many possibilities there were, he could always think of the most boring one. Now is not the time. Xiao Ju was too lazy to explain to Yin. She looked at him and asked him with rare patience, "Are you okay being here alone?" Yin smiled. "What problem can I have? Commander-in-Chief, don't worry. I'll just sleep in the carriage." Lin Shuanghe sensed something and poked his head out. "Huijin, you mean I also have to enter the palace?" Xiao Ju looked at him coldly. Lin Shuanghe coughed lightly. "Excuse me, can I not go?" "You can't." Xiao Ju sneered. "Although I wrote a letter to invite you to Liangzhou, you didn't tell anyone in the Lin family before you left. Imperial Physician Lin sent a bunch of urgent letters to my account to find someone. Do you want to read them now?" Lin Shuanghe smiled awkwardly. I thought that you must be looking for me in an urgent situation. When people are anxious, their brains don't work well. I forgot. Yes, I forgot to tell my family." And he crossed his arms in front of his chest and said coldly, "Aren't you his good friend? You won't die if you take the blame for him." Lin Shuanghe was very touched. "Brother Nanguang, I've known you for so many years. Finally, I've heard such words from you." "Shut up." Xiao Ju frowned slightly impatiently. Lin Shuanghe immediately stopped talking. After he got down from the carriage, Xiao Ju was about to leave with him. Suddenly, he remembered something and walked to the carriage. Yin lifted the curtain of the carriage and looked at him. "Stay here and don't run around. There are many people outside the palace," Xiao Ju reminded her. He paused and his tone became gentler. "When I leave the palace, I'll take you home." Chapter 193. Xiao Ju and the other two followed the servant into the palace. Yin sat alone in the carriage. When he heard Xiao Ju say, "Take you home," even though he knew that Xiao Ju was just saying it casually, the person who heard it felt dizzy. He buried his head in his face and felt like he was floating. She didn't know what home was. Although the He family in her previous life was a home, They never gave her affection and warmth. The Su family was also a home, but they pushed her into the cold water. The other He family in this life finally gave her some attachment and warmth to live in this world. However, before the matter was settled, she couldn't rashly meet with them. Thinking of this, Hyan's joy gradually calmed down. She had to find a way to go back and see Yunsheng and He Sui. She had been gone for more than a year. He Sui and He Yunsheng must be very worried. Back when she was in the Liangzhou Guards, Hyan had secretly given Fei Nu money and begged Fei Nu to find a way to send a message to He Sui to tell her that she was safe. When he went to Jiang and the war in Yuchuo started, he forgot about this matter. It had been a while since he sent a letter to He Sui and the others. He Sui and the others must be worried sick. She had to find a way to go to the Su family. It was a little difficult to start with He Rufei. She had to start with the Su family. He Yin was killed. From beginning to end, Su Zhiheng and He Rufei didn't directly show their faces. She died at He Wanru's hands. With Su Zhiheng's temperament, he would definitely kill He Wanru to silence her. Perhaps everyone present on that day couldn't escape the word death. But was there no smart person in the Su family? Just like Chai Anshi in the Battle of Mingshui, there might be a fish that escaped the net in the Su family's courtyard. That was her chance. She had to first prove that there was something wrong with Su Zhiheng's death. Only then could she peel back the layers of silk and reveal the He family's biggest sinister secret. He carefully thought about his future plans after returning to Shuajing. Unknowingly, the sky gradually darkened. When the lanterns in front of the palace gate lit up, a familiar figure walked out. Only Xiao Ju and Hien came out. Lin Shuanghe was nowhere to be seen. Hien asked curiously, "Where is Brother Lin?" "Imperial physician Lin is in the palace. He won't be leaving for now," Xiao Ju answered and looked at Yanhe. "Don't look at me. I'm going back now." Yanhe ordered a servant to lead the horse. Qingxiu is still waiting for me at home. He seemed to be particularly proud of the fact that someone was waiting for him. "You are all alone. Of course, you don't care about these things." Finishing, he flipped onto the horse and said, "Let's go." He swaggered off. To be honest, Yin used to think that He was obstinate and self-opinionated. Every day, he was like a cockfight. Whenever he saw an outstanding talent, he would compete with them. His life was too hard. Now, seeing him leave with a face full of smiles, she actually felt a trace of envy. It was probably a happy thing to have someone waiting for you at home after a long journey. She was lost in thought as she looked at Yanhe's back. Suddenly, she heard Xiao Ju's voice, "Why aren't you getting in?" Yin hurriedly shrank back into the carriage. Fei Nu and Qi Wu were driving the carriage outside. Yin and Xiao Ju sat in the carriage. From the Rundu to Shuajing, the journey was very lively. Yin Nongguang, Lin Shuanghe, Xiao Ju, and Yin were all former schoolmates. When they were together, they could even play leaf cards at a table. She didn't feel it when they were noisy. Now that everyone had dispersed, only she and Xiao Ju were in the carriage. The atmosphere was quiet, and she felt somewhat uneasy. "What are you nervous about?" Xiao Ju leaned against the carriage and asked casually. He had almost choked on her own saliva. After hesitating for a long time, she squeezed out a sentence. "I haven't been to your house before. It's my first time coming here empty-handed. I just feel a little apologetic." Speaking of this, Yin really thought of this matter. She asked Xiao Ju, "Commander-in-Chief, why don't we buy some snacks and cloth for your family as gifts when we pass by the goods store later?" Xiao Ju stared into her eyes and pursed her lips. "Are you going to propose marriage? Is it your first time coming here as a gift?" "Don't we need to?" Yin asked. "I haven't been to other people's residences before. I don't know what to do when I'm a guest for the first time." In the past, when she was He Rufei, the He family was afraid that she would be exposed. They didn't even make friends, let alone visit other people's residences. In this life, Yin didn't even have time to understand how ordinary people made friends before she went straight to the army camp. Her seriousness made Xiao Ju speechless for a moment. She pushed her head away. "There's no need. Just do whatever you want." "Commander-in-Chief, don't you have eldest young Master Xiao and eldest young Mistress Xiao at home?" Yin recalled what Lin Shuanghe had said earlier and said, It said that eldest young Master Xiao is the #1 dream lover of all women in Dawei. Is that true? Rumor has it that he is very gentle and never mistreats his subordinates. He is a gentleman who is upright and gentle. Is that true? Xiao Ju said calmly. You want to be my sister-in-law? How is that possible? Hian immediately denied it. She wasn't Song Tao Dao. She wasn't interested in having a brother-in-law like Xiao Ju. I'm just curious. Also, eldest young mistress Xiao, how is she? Is she easy to get along with? Hian hesitated for a moment. It's better if it's a man, but I don't know how to deal with a woman. What does she like and dislike? Is she lively or reserved? How I talk to her to make her happy. Xiao Ju restrained herself and said calmly, If you make her happy, my big brother will be in trouble. Hian said, Oh. She returned to her seat, as if she was still thinking about this matter. Xiao Ju raised her eyebrows slightly. Hian seemed to be very interested in the matter of being a guest. That kind of excitement and nervousness was like a young child receiving an invitation to go to a friend's house for the first time. He was at a loss and afraid of making a mistake, but he was also faintly happy and expectant. Yisui only had one son and one daughter. Compared to his son, his daughter, who looked very similar to his late wife, was obviously more favored by this military officer. According to the information that Luan Ying had gathered, Hian used to be arrogant and unreasonable. Sometimes she was vain. Although this could be a fox's disguise, the neighbors near the He family said that Hian still had some sisters, even if their relationship wasn't very good. But why did he have this kind of expression? Xiao Ju could clearly see Hian's inner emotions and contradictions, but she couldn't see the reason for it. Hian always seemed to be shrouded in a thick layer of fog, making many of her actions inexplicable. However, the more mysterious she was, the more people would be attracted to her. Otherwise, being alone in the thick fog would always make people feel sorry for her. While she was thinking, the carriage stopped in front of the Xiao mansion. Fei Nu and Qi Wu dismounted. Before Xiao Ju and He Yin got off the carriage, they heard an excited voice from outside. Young mistress, young master, second young master is back. Immediately after, there was a burst of noise from inside the mansion. It seemed that someone was coming. He Yin had just gotten off the carriage with Xiao Ju when the Xiao family's door opened. Several people walked out from inside. Walking at the front was a young couple. The man wore a round-neck brocade robe with a sky blue color. He really looked elegant and refined. The woman next to him was beautiful. Her eyebrows were moving. Her snow-white dress outlined her graceful figure. She was like a white pear tree. This was Xiao Ju's eldest brother, Xiao Jing, and his wife, Byron Wei. Hian had heard of this couple's name before, but seeing them in person was better than hearing 100 times. When these two people stood together, it was very pleasing to the eye. The Xiao family was really a place where beauties came from. Each and every one of them was so beautiful. Hian thought that when she stepped into the Xiao family's mansion, she didn't know if it would be considered a hindrance to the appearance of the Xiao family. Huijin, you're finally back. Bai Rong smiled. Your eldest brother has been thinking about you every day since a month ago. Today, when he got off work, he waited in the mansion. Bagua puffed out her chest proudly. Second young master sent Nubi over. Nubi will definitely take good care of young master. Thank you very much, Hien said with a smile. Bagua was very excited. It seemed that this was the first time she had received such an important task. She replied, Young master is second young master's friend. There's no need to thank Nubi. Nubi will go to the kitchen now. Young master, please wait a moment. The hot water is in the silver kettle at the door of the courtyard. If young master wants to wash your face, you can pour it directly. Second young master said that young master doesn't like to be touched by people. Nubi doesn't need to do such a small thing as pouring water. She stuck out her tongue and ran away. Ian looked at her back and thought, Xiaoju was very thoughtful. She found such a simple and pure little girl. Even if she saw that there was something wrong with her, she wouldn't think of anything else. What if it was a smart person who came over and accidentally discovered her identity? What would she do then? She lowered her head and laughed. First, she went to the place Bai Guo mentioned to fetch water and returned to the room to freshen up. Just as she finished, Bai Guo came in with a food basket. She stepped over the threshold and put the food basket on the table. Young master, after you finish eating, just leave the food basket here. Nubi will clean it up. Nubi will come in again if you need anything. Before Yin could say anything, she immediately left. Yin was speechless. He really didn't know what Xiaoju said to her. The food was plain porridge and side dishes, just like last night. It wasn't extravagant, but it was exquisite and meticulous. Yin finished the food and put the empty plates into the food basket. He tidied his clothes and walked to the table. He thought of what Bai Guo said and opened the wooden drawer. Sure enough, there was a thick stack of banknotes inside. He thought that Bai Guo would at most have 1 or 2 banknotes. He didn't expect Xiaoju to be so generous. This amount of banknotes was enough to give the girl a betrothal gift. Evil aristocratic children, Yin thought angrily. No wonder when Xiaoju went to buy clothes in Jiang, he bought 100 tails of mermaid gauze without batting an eye. With money, one could really do whatever they wanted. Yin didn't touch the banknotes inside. Instead, he closed the wooden drawer and walked out of the room. She had a good memory and knew how to walk from this courtyard to the entrance of Xiao Mansion. She didn't meet Bai Rongwei or Xiao Jing along the way. As for the rest of the servants, she didn't know if Xiaoju greeted them in advance, but none of them paid attention to her. They only focused on their own tasks. It was as if Yan's appearance in the Xiao family was a very natural thing. It was as if she had lived in the Xiao family since a long time ago and was a member of the Xiao family. They left the school in 2s and 3s. At the same time, He Yunxing tidied up the table and got up to leave. He Yin followed He Yunsheng from a distance. He Yunsheng entered an empty alley. He had only taken a few steps when he suddenly felt a strong wind behind him. He subconsciously turned around and struck back with his palm. That palm didn't hit anyone. Instead, it hit another soft but tough palm. It silently blocked the wind from his palm and easily made him retreat a few steps. "Who is it?" he shouted vigilantly. The next moment, a familiar voice with a smile sounded. "Good boy. It seems that the year of school training wasn't in vain. You've grown a lot stronger." Hearing this voice, He Yunsheng was stunned. He couldn't believe his ears. The palm in front of him moved away, revealing the person's face. A face that was similar to his would appear in his mind every now and then. It was a beautiful and elegant face that was familiar yet unfamiliar at the same time. His older sister. "Hien, you?" He Yunxing's voice trembled. Hien slapped his head and rubbed it. "What about you? Call me older sister. Why are you back?" He Yunsheng seemed to have finally regained his senses. He rubbed his eyes. It was at this moment that He Yin saw a little of the boy he used to see. He stepped forward and grabbed He Yan's elbows as if to confirm whether he was dreaming or reality. "You're really back? He Yan, when did you come back? Do you know that Dad and I have been worried to death this year?" His eyes were red and his voice was choked with sobs. He Yan looked at the boy in front of her and couldn't help but sigh. The boy grew quickly. He Yunsheng was much taller than before after a year and a half. Now, she had to look up at him. He was also much thinner than before. He looked tall and straight, as if he was already an adult. He Yin pulled him out. "This is not the place to talk. Come with me." In the tea room, exquisite pastries were placed in front of him. He Yunsheng had no intention of eating them. The person in front of him pushed the plate in front of him. "Don't you like to eat these? Eat more." He Yunsheng straightened his neck and said, "I don't like sweets." He enrolled her eyes in her heart. She wondered who was the one who drooled over the pastries He Sui gave her when they were chopping firewood in the mountains. She looked at the boy in front of her. The child had grown up and knew how to protect his own self-esteem. It was strange. She had met Cheng Lisu and Song Tao Tao, who were all younger than her. However, she always had an inexplicable concern for He Yunsheng. This concern was well hidden when she was in Liangzhou. Once she saw He Yunsheng, she couldn't suppress it. She just wanted to give the best to this child and hope that he would be well in the future. Perhaps it was because this body was Lady He's. This was the wonder of blood ties. You still haven't told me why you came back. Of course I know what you're talking about. I must resign, but now is not the time. I still have some things to do. When I finish, I will resign. He Yinsheng was about to ask her what she wanted to do, but He Yin suddenly opened her mouth again. She asked, "Let's not talk about me. What about you guys? When I wasn't in Shuajing, how was father? Did the Fan family come looking for trouble?" He Yunqing's expression darkened. Those bastards. How could they not come looking for trouble? It turned out that after He Yin joined the army, Fan Sheng's murderer was never found. The Fan family vented their anger on the He family. Although He Yin was also a victim, because He Yin's body was never found, there was no evidence. Fan Sheng's family often found trouble with He Sui in the field. They slandered He Sui for not doing things properly, causing He Sui to lose his position as a field officer. Fortunately, not long after that, there was a merchant in Shuajing who wanted to hire a bodyguard. When they found out that He Sui was a field officer and had good skills, they asked He Sui to work for them. Although it didn't sound as good as being a field officer, the merchant was generous and gave him a lot of money. He Yin was a little suspicious. "You have a lot of money, but aren't you wearing old clothes?" From the words of your classmates, it's clear that they dislike you for not being willing to spend money with them. He Yinsheng looked at her in disbelief. "You actually eavesdropped, Shu." He Yin smiled. "I was just passing by and happened to hear it. You kept the money and didn't use it. Could it be that you saved it as a betrothal gift?" He Yinsheng didn't say anything. He couldn't tell He Yin that although his family had a lot of money, he had discussed it with He Sui. They didn't know when He Yin would come back after joining the army. As a girl, he didn't know how much hardship she had suffered outside. It was good enough that she was still alive. If she was old when she came back, or if she was disliked by others, she would not marry and save more money. In the future, if He Yin wanted to live alone in Shuajing, having more money would not be a bad thing. Seeing that He Yunsheng didn't say anything, He Yin thought that he had guessed correctly. She smiled and said, "Don't be so thrifty. I'm a person with a salary now." She took out 2 banknotes from her bosom and said in a low voice, "We won the battle earlier. These are the spoils of war, His Majesty's reward. Take this money, go back and make 2 new clothes for father and yourself. Treat yourself better. Clothes make a man, and a horse makes a saddle. If you dress up well, the girl you like will like you, right? Young girls like handsome men. Although you have a handsome face, you don't have a good personality. You need to dress up." He Yinsheng held the banknotes in his hand. After a while, he asked, "You won the battle? Did you go to the battlefield? Which battle?" "I came here today to see you. I'm relieved to see that you're doing well. Go back and tell father that I'm fine. We'll find a place to meet again in a few days." He Yinsheng felt a little wronged. It wasn't easy to see him, but he had to hide as if he couldn't be seen. However, he knew in his heart that He Yin was right. "Then what about you?" He stuffed the banknotes back into He Yin's hands. "Don't you need to use the banknotes yourself? You can take them yourself. Also, where are you staying now? An inn? Inns are not safe. I heard that there are many unscrupulous shops." He Yin couldn't be bothered to push the banknotes back and forth. She stuffed the banknotes into his arms and said, "I still have a lot of them. It's a thick stack. You can use them whenever you want. You don't have to worry about it. I'm not staying in an inn now. I've asked someone to look for a house to rent. Before that, I'll be staying at a friend's house." "Friend?" He Yunqing's ears perked up. He looked at her vigilantly and impatiently asked, "What friend? Did you meet him at the Liang Province Guards? How old is he? Is he a man or a woman?" He Yin was speechless. Why did he look like a father who wanted his daughter to stay the night outside? She thought that if she said Xiao Ju's name, He Yunsheng would probably follow her back to the Xiao residence tonight. After all, He Yunsheng's words were still fresh in He Yan's mind. "If I were a woman, I would only love him." He Yan's mouth twitched. For a moment, she couldn't imagine He Yunsheng and Xiao Ju standing together. After a while, she said, Why do you care so much? Anyway, he's a big shot. Thus, Miss Shin stayed on the battlefield and learned medicine. She has been helping Huai since then. Uncle Shun couldn't do anything about his daughter. He could only ask Huai to help take care of her. Huai accepted Uncle Shun's kindness and protected Miss Shun's safety on the battlefield. He already knew that Shun Mushiwe went to the battlefield for Xiao Ju, but he didn't know the details. Now that he heard by Rong Wei's explanation, he couldn't help but feel bitter. Shun Mushiwe's actions were very brave and affectionate, just like what Liang Ping and the others said that day at the martial arts practice field. As long as one was a man, they would be moved and feel pity for her. She heard her own voice ask softly, hiding all her emotions, "Does Foreign want the two of them to be together? How could that be?" Bai Rongwei was slightly stunned, then laughed. "Ruby and I had this idea before, but then we saw that Huai really didn't have any feelings for Miss Shun, so we gave up. Young master, you're close to Huai. You should know that with Huai personality, no one can force him to do anything, let alone marry. Since he didn't have any feelings for her, we naturally couldn't force him. Otherwise, not only would we hurt Huai, but we would also hurt Miss Shun." He had heard this and was somewhat suspicious. He only asked by Rongwei, "I don't quite understand what for means. Even if they can't be husband and wife, they're still friends." Miss Shun didn't want to visit, so it's obvious that they had a conflict over something. But Huai isn't a petty person, and Miss Shun isn't an unreasonable girl. After thinking about it, there's only one possibility. She looked at Ian, her eyes sparkling. There was a trace of expectation in her usually gentle expression. Ian looked at her, puzzled. "Does Huai have a girl he likes?" "Ian, huh?" Bai Rongwei continued. "If Huai has a girl he likes, then everything makes sense. Only this would truly hurt Miss Shun's heart, and she wouldn't even be willing to visit. Young master have you seen anyone in Huai heart?" "Ian, I don't think so." "How can that be?" Bai Rongwei was slightly disappointed, but she quickly continued to ask, "Then is there any girl in the Liangzhou Guard who's close to Huai? Other than Miss Shun, there aren't any other girls in the Liangzhou Guard." Ian abruptly stopped speaking. "Actually, there was a girl in the Liangzhou Guard who was close to Xiao Ju. Wasn't that her? But Xiao Ju liked him, and she even had a conflict with Shin Mushiwe because of him." It sounded unimaginable. Bai Rongwei sighed. "If that's the case, then it's really worrying." Seeing Ian looking at her, Bai Rongwei smiled bitterly. Huai should have gotten married a long time ago at his age. But he doesn't even have a girl he likes, let alone a wife. Ruby and I are both worried.